All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our strategic planning meeting for February 7th, 2025. Um, well, we'll start off with a few comments here. You know, how's that? Oh, I forgot to turn that one off. Well, we're coming together today because we do have a shared vision, to plan for our city. Our past council has set the path, and now we're here today to see whether or not we continue this path, go right or go left, or whichever direction we decide. But our goal is to build a stronger community. That is our main goal. And we're going to focus on, of course, the growth that we're experiencing, any solutions that we need to come up with, and also, most important, enhancing the quality of life for our residents. And we're going to do this through collaboration, innovation, and just overall input and see whether or not we are in that right direction, or whether or not we need to steer it a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. It's the decisions we make here that will reflect the progress, not just tomorrow, but for years to come, 3, 5, or even 10 years. That's what this plan is. So that's what we're here today for. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Steve, and he'll kick us off with our planning.
Thank you, Mayor.
Our comments, and then we'll open up the hearing the residents.
Yes, sir. If you want to go ahead and do the hearing of residents.
Let's go ahead and do the hearing of residents. I don't think anybody signed up. Am I correct? Okay, there is no one here for the hearing the residents, so we'll kick it off. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody's time being here. This is our strategic planning retreat. If you will remember, last year, with the exception of Councilmember Guerrero, we met this time last year and met with Ron Cox from Ron Cox Consulting, and we developed our strategic plan. It had not been updated in some time, about 5 years, 5, 6 years, and we took the time as a council and staff to sit down and update our strategic plan quite significantly and set it up the way it is now. And we retained our mission and vision and our core values. But the significant change came in the form of the way that we implement the remainder of the plan. And that was to take what we called our operational values and our policy values and essentially change those to be goals. And goals for our city of what we want to be, and like the mayor just very well stated, that how we want to look in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, essentially what we want to be when we grow up. So we realigned that to be a set of 5 goals, and then underneath those goals, we had a series of objectives ranging from 4 to 6, somewhere in that neighborhood under each one of the goals. So today, our process will be to go through those goals and intentionally touch on each of the goals, and then within those, the objectives. And underneath those objectives, we have things that we've accomplished already that are springboarding us into the future, as well as things that are in process, and then things we plan to do. So we're gonna walk through that. We're gonna cover that, and all the way through the process, your input is welcome. Ask questions, add comments, and we can stop and discuss at any point. So I'm not going to rehash or restate the mission and vision and the policy, the core values, because we know those. And we're gonna jump right to the goals. And we're gonna discuss the goals and the objectives, and then the way I just described. So what are our objectives? Objectives, for lack of a better term, for the retreat today. We wanna seek validation from council where we're headed. And then we also want to discuss the important issues that are out on the horizon, as well as identifying any priorities that y'all may have that we're not touching on here that we seem to have missed, or that you've been, that you're ready to share now at this point in time. So the 5 different goals that we have in our strategic plan, you can see them up there, and we'll walk through these one by one. We'll talk about the goal, and we'll talk about the objectives with each of those, and then we'll move into the latter part like I described. So we have sustainable government, safe and livable community, infrastructure investment, sense of community, and a thriving economy. These are the things that you don't necessarily check them off, and you don't necessarily say, okay, we're thriving economy, we're done with that, let's get another goal. It's something that you continuously work towards, and you build and build and build, achieving your objectives to work towards the goals. So I'll jump right in, unless anybody's got any comments or questions regarding anything I've said so far. If you need more coffee, get some more coffee. We got tacos right there. All right, so the first one that we have is sustainable government. And you can see we have 4 objectives underneath sustainable government. What does that mean to us as a city and in terms of our strategic plan? So the first thing is we want to protect our financial stability, integrity, and credibility. And then we have recruit, develop, and retain a qualified, competent, and diverse municipal workforce, identify the areas where improvements are needed through the use of data, technology, and innovative approaches, and lastly, to ensure government transparency. Now, normally I wouldn't sit up here and read these to you, but I think it's important for anybody who might be watching this at home to understand that these are the goals, the objectives as they are explicitly stated in our strategic plan. This is directly from our website. So I am taking the time to go ahead and read them so they can be heard. Now, on the next page, we have sustainable government and any things that are accomplishments so far and then our plans for the future. These individually relate back to one or possibly 2 of the objectives on the prior slide. But they also might pertain to a different goal and a different objective, because they cross over. They don't fit neatly just under necessarily one objective. It could be in a couple of areas. So when we get to a certain goal, and we get to a point where there is the possibility that some of these really they can fit in a couple of different areas. We're just discussing it in this particular goal. So the first one is our CIP and operating budget. And I want to take a few minutes to kind of bring us up to where we are now and where we want to be. First, the operating budget. Operating budget is a tool that I don't think, we publish it, but I don't think it's really widely known really what it is. Of course, it's our spending plan for the year. And of course, it's something that we look at and say, okay, this department has this much, this fund has this much to spend. We want to bring in this much in revenues. But it's also a communications device. It's really important as a communications device to let the public and let our community, as well as the people who invest in the city of Schertz. And sometimes we don't think about it that way, but we do have investors in the city of Schertz. Those are our bondholders. Those are the people who loan us money so we can do all the things that we need to do, all the wonderful things that we do for our community in terms of infrastructure, et cetera. We do have investors in the city of Schertz. We use that budget as a communication device for everybody. And it's also the cornerstone of our accounting record. When it's what we compare ourselves to, right? Or what we compare to when we audit the numbers. And we want to make sure that we're hitting our budgets and we're hitting our targets. It's fluid, but it's a lot different from the private sector. We're not necessarily profit-driven or looking at a P&L to generate a certain margin to have a higher stock price, right? We are maximizing our service within the means that we have. And we're focused on the amount of revenues we're going to bring in, as well as what our spending limitations are relative to those revenues. So we're going to deliver the most service possible. All right, that being said, our operating budget, it's a good operating budget, but we have some enhancements and we want to make some improvements. we intend to apply for the GFOA budget award, which is essentially helps you design your budget in such a way that you can make sure that you're fulfilling or doing the best you can to fulfill everything that I just said. So we're working on that. We intend to utilize that or meet that goal or objective. And then on the other side, the capital improvement program. Prior to this year, the city never really had a comprehensive capital improvement program. And what do I mean by a comprehensive capital improvement program? What I mean is a CIP that encompassed everything that might be supported by a particular revenue source, like a general government CIP that you use a variety of sources, but mostly say general obligation type bonds to support your general government CIP. And then you have a water and sewer CIP where you might use water and sewer revenue bonds. Those two are separate. But what you want to do is make sure that you have all of those projects on the list and everything listed out, and it also helps you develop a plan to plan, prioritize, as well as to plan your plan of work over the next 5 to 10 years. We never really had that organized in the fashion that we do now, and we've got an excellent start on that. Kathy, James, everybody did a great job putting all that together, everybody who's involved in that. And I'm spending a little time talking about both of these because they're critical for our strategic plan and for the implementation of everything that we want to do. And that's where the utilization, integration, and enhancements come into place. I already talked about the enhancements that we want to do, but the utilization is, first of all, we want to be able to make sure that we are appropriately long-term forecasting, right? Long-term forecasting in terms of our capital needs, our plan of work, how much can we afford to do. Typically the list is longer than we can afford to do at the current level of revenues that we have. But what can we achieve, and what timeline are we going to achieve that? On the other side, same thing with our operating budget. We want to make sure that we are planning our work in such a way and we're not making decisions that make us insolvent 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So taking those two documents, enhancing them, and then integrating them into what we do will go beyond what I just said, actually. But we want to make sure that we're accounting for impacts from the CIP on the operating budget. It's the classic story of, well, if we decide to build a fire station, but we don't have enough room in our operating budget to hire firefighters, you've got a really nice fire station, but it's empty. So we need to make sure that we're calculating the effect of the CIP projects on the operating budget. Another step down the line in terms of the CIP and the operating budget, more so the CIP, is, well, actually both, is integrating that into how we implement our strategic plan. So really evaluating the things that we do. So when we get into the budget process, we'll start evaluating expanded program requests in light of how they fit into the strategic plan. If they don't fit into the strategic plan, if you can't identify an objective, or you can identify how that objective rolls up into a goal and how it rolls up into all the way up to our mission vision, then really should we be doing that? Should we be funding that? Now, the reason for today is to look at the plan and say, you know what? All right, here are the things that are in here, are the things that belong in there, et cetera. Or, I've got this thing, where does it fit? Does it fit in there? And if it doesn't fit, is it worth making an addition to the plan in some capacity? I don't recommend wholesale changing the plan because a lot of work went into that and a lot of thought went into that, and it covers a lot of areas, but that's kind of the point. So, that's a lot being said about the operating budget and the CIP, but eventually start utilizing those two key planning documents and expenditure documents to make sure that we're within the strategic plan, but then also eventually on the back end to measure performance. And as we're implementing these things, how does it cycle through the bottom and then relate all the way back to the top for future planning? It's a process. We are not going to get there overnight. It's not going to be something that we're going to do be able to completely do, say, this year or next year. It's something that we're going to work continuously to get better at and to integrate more into the process. All right, any questions? All right, that was a lot on that one, but I do feel like it's important. That's kind of why it's the first one listed. And I do want to comment about the goals. They're not necessarily in priority order either. There is no prioritization among the 5 different goal areas. Okay, next is something that the staff is sick of me saying. It's called building the brand. Building the brand is Schertz. You all have told me, you have heard me say this over and over, but I think it's important, and I think it's working. It's something that our staff is doing a great job. Council members are doing a great job, quite frankly, as well. But building the brand of Schertz is something that is important to our organization, and it ranges from having a conversation on the street, but even to the notion of participation in professional associations and serving on the board or a committee or writing an article or doing a presentation at the conference or whatever the case may be. It's getting our name out there. We can actually see fruits of that labor already in terms of more people are interested in coming to work for the city of Schertz because we're starting to build that brand. People are starting to go, yeah, Schertz is a pretty cool place. I might want to go work there. Now, we're stronger in some areas than others in doing that. So we're going to work on, raising the bar all the way across the board. But in the future, what we want to do is we want to enhance that awareness and keep working on that. And it's something that, when we get to the budget process, you'll see that in there. It's something that's important for our organization to continue to do. And y'all hear us say, and you see emails like, so-and-so did this, and congratulations. That's because they're out there doing that. They're actually putting the feet on the pavement. I'll throw Sarah out there. She did a presentation last Friday at a big conference with a whole lot of important people at it and knocked it out of the park. So good job, Sarah. There you go. Training is the next one. And training, this could range all the way. Mostly what we're talking about here is in-house or localized, but really where we feel like there's a focus area that we need to work on is our mid-management and our line supervision. And really kind of, I think we do a really good job. The consensus is we do a really good job kind of at the baseline. We do a good job at the top, but really where are we focusing on the middle? Are we helping the midline or the mid-level management and line supervision get better and better at what they do to help themselves improve, serve the organization better, and help their career advance? Also, succession planning is a big deal. And that's something that's really important for our organization, making sure that we're putting things together where people are ready to make the next move, to step up to the next level. And we've done a good job of that, but it's something we can improve on, and it's something that we intend to continue to build on. So, in case you're curious, and you're wondering which ones we refer to each, you can toggle back and forth between the two, but the first one is obviously for the first bullet, the financial stability, and then the next one is recruit and retain, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're interested, you can toggle back and forth between the two pages if you've got it handy there. Software enhances, this is another big one under sustainable government. It's something the city has invested a lot of resources in over the last, I don't even know, several years. We've invested a lot of resources, and intentionally, we're going to continue to invest in resources that meet this definition, but we're also going to take the ones that we have, and we're going to keep getting better and better at them. A pitfall that a lot of any organization, a private company or a government, falls into a lot of times is you buy something, you buy this fancy software, and you use about 20% of it. We're going to work to get to where we're utilizing more and more of that capacity. So you can see some of the ones we have on there. CityView, we've had a lot of success with CityView, Lisa and her group. I think it's something that took an area where we were, quite frankly, needed a lot of improvement, and have improved it tremendously in terms of organization and accessibility to our builders, developers. Everybody can get right into City View and get what they want without waiting for a return phone call. You can also keep things, so it's something that's been successful for that. But it's also something that we could probably do a little bit more with, and we're working to use it more and more. Another one is Encode. Encode is our general ledger software at its core, and then we have other modules that surround that. But Encode is a product that we just did a major update to. We went from version 9 to version 10. Well, what that means is, usually when you have a version upgrade, it doesn't change a whole lot. Well, this one changed a lot, right, James? Pretty much changed the entire interface. Everything's different. So it's a major upgrade and a major change. And the success around that was we were able to streamline a lot of things. We did Tyler Content Management as kind of an add-on on top of that. It's a Tyler Technologies product. Where now we got rid of the paper shuffle of requisitions and invoices. We also changed the way we process payments. So not to get too boring into the weeds on it, but it was a major upgrade in terms of efficiency and security of our information and record keeping, because all the records are digitized, they're all online, they're easily accessible through the software. That's one that was a big success.
We got rid of 3 filing cabinets.
got rid of the 3 probably big filing cabinets, right? And something that was probably over at storage too. I'm sure we cleaned out some stuff. So when you go to a digitized process, not only do you eliminate the giant file cabinets full of files, you could pull that information in about 1 second. And you can also, you can have, instead of just 1 year sitting there, you can have 10 years sitting there in your computer, right, at your fingertips. And you can also eliminate the float and the driving back and forth between buildings to get something signed and moving. It's just cute. So anyways, not to get too much in it, but that is a big win for us. The other one is Bonfire and Image Trend and Tyler RMS and OpenGov. I'm not going to pretend like I know what those do as much, but Bonfire is library?
Contracts.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Bonfire is the e-procurement software where we don't take our bids. They come in electronically now. There's no missing the deadline, because the deadline, it's like turning in your homework on Canvas if you're a high school student or a college student. But it streamlines our purchasing process, makes it way more efficient and way easier to use. Image Trend is Fire and EMS, and it does something. Wait, turn your mic.
Being for patient care reports. So we have to document those patient encounters and it saves that for us, so.
But probably better than paper.
Yes.
Okay. And then Tyler RMS is a record management system. I think it's for police.
Yes, sir. It integrates with our CAD system. It's reporting, and it also goes hand in hand with our MDCs to allow officers to take the MDCs out of their car to do the reports in the field instead of coming back to the station.
And
Mobile data computer.
there you go. And then lastly, OpenGov. It used to be known, well, it's a product called Cartograph that OpenGov, the company, owns, and it'll be like a asset inventory type software for facilities and some other departments. You can use it for a lot of things. You can actually integrate your GIS with it, and it's a very effective tool that we can use to organize our assets, but then also you can use it for a number of things. Is Fleet going to use it? So like fleet inventory, maintaining your assets there. It's a high-powered work order system as well, making sure that you're queuing. I've used it in the past, and you could use phone in as well as through the network, email, et cetera, to utilize that. So what does all this mean? And that's something that's out on the horizon. And the Tyler RMS and I think Image Trend are in process. Or are they done? Done, and RMS?
We launched it 3 weeks ago, and so far it's we're still in making sure everything's 100%.
Okay. And so I'm spending a little bit of time on this, y'all, because that represents probably a couple $1 million investment by the city. And it doesn't even encompass a lot of the other things that the other software enhancements that we have, or things that we've done that are smaller or really kind of network based, and things that for our internal infrastructure. But it represents millions of dollars investment probably over time, and including the annual maintenance agreements that go along with that. But what does that mean? We're not just spending that money to spend that money. We are utilizing it to be more effective in what we do and more efficient. And in the long run, that saves us time and it saves us money. And in fact, even probably less personnel required. So, any comments? Something I left off? Okay. I do want to say one more thing in terms of moving into the future. It's in this, but it's a little bit later, but cybersecurity is a big issue. We had, that as a priority has been pushed to the forefront recently, so in our world, and so that's something that we intend to invest more in and take further steps to make sure that we're taking care of that. And that's all I'll say about that. Lastly, performance measurement. Really, goes back to the talk, touched on it on the CIP and the budget, the operating budget, and that implementation or integration with the strategic plan. And eventually we want to get to the point where we're measuring performance more in a more structured fashion, and then utilizing that. How effective are we being when we do things? And it's not the end-all be-all. I'm not going to stand here and profess to you that doing performance measures is the end-all be-all, but it can be another tool that you can use to measure effectiveness. And if something's underperforming, you might actually need to apply more resources to that area. Or you might need to enhance it if it's something that we can get a broader impact from. So, all right, that is it on sustainable government. No, it's not it. We have one more bullet, and it's legislative focus. This is the big one. So legislative focus, you're all aware that our Linda Klepper is our Director of Public Affairs, and she has been tasked in the last year and a half to be our person that heads up our legislative efforts. We're in the session right now, and we know that there is a lot of legislation that impacts the city, but really the areas that we are concerned the most about at this point in time are things that impact our finances as well as our planning and land development and everything that goes around our planning efforts for the future. We've dealt with a lot of those issues lately, and quite frankly, there's a little bit of uncertainty as how it's going to be after September 1st of this year. There might be legislation that passes that impacts us. Linda's done a great job so far. She's not here today. She's not feeling well, so she's not here. But one thing she's done an excellent job at is really getting us started. And this is something that, as an organization, we are going to continue to get better and better at, and that is having relationships with our legislators, being involved not only during the session, but in the off year, and to make sure that we're in contact. So when something major comes up, and you're all aware of the disabled veterans homestead exemption and the 100% and how that impacts our finance, has a dramatic effect on our finances. That's one thing that we are actively participating at the legislature, meeting with our different legislators to hopefully get the program funded like the state intended to do originally when they put it into place. It's been said a million times, but I'll say it again. We are seeking funding from the state to support the program. We're not desiring to change the program in any sense of the way it's implemented. We just would like the state to pay for it as they intended in the first place. And that's something that's really important to Schertz, Texas, because of our proximity, the makeup of our residents, and it's something that we as an organization, it's worth our time and our effort and our resources to make sure that our legislators are fully aware of how it affects us. And quite frankly, not just the city government, but the people who live here. It impacts the people who live there in terms of lower service that we could provide otherwise. So, not to get off on too much of a tangent on that, but there are other issues as well. And they do affect the things we're going to talk about a little bit more as we go along. But another thing at the legislature that could impact us pretty dramatically is density issues. And our comprehensive plan, as it looks right now, potentially could look completely different. And not by our own design, but by the design of the state. So these are just two kind of highlighted areas. There are a lot of other areas that are more specific that could impact us. But what does all that mean? It doesn't mean anything until they go to committee, they get out of committee, they pass the House or the Senate, and then they conference and reconcile, and the governor signs it. But you have to be aware of where it is in the process and what's important to us. And there's, I believe, and maybe Mayor Pro Tem Hayward can correct me, 11,000 bills, close to 11,000 bills filed this session. A record by a big stretch. A big stretch. So I would say at least 1,000 of those pertain to cities. Go ahead. Do you have a comment on that? No. Okay, so.
I would say there's a lot, and they still can file, so they're gonna have a record number of bills, and they're gonna come after cities hard.
Yes, and that's the general tone. So we're limited, but we also participate with others. Right now with the Disabled Veterans Homestead Exemption, we've worked with and continuing to work with other cities, kind of a group of cities that are affected dramatically, because this isn't a statewide issue. It's really for a handful of us that are just hit really, really hard. And then on the other hand, we're working with TML and the resources that they provide and the excellent work they do to follow and make sure what's important to us, because we can only cover so much ground. We can't cover 10,000 bills ground, right? We can cover a handful of ground. But what's important, what's making it through the process, and what do we need to support, be neutral on, or be against, quite frankly. So that's a lot of comment on that, but it is an important area for us, and the intention is that we keep going forward unless told otherwise. We're going to continue forward, and we're going to continue to make a push. It may be something that requires more resources in the future to be a little more impactful. I don't know what that looks like. It's just something that maybe we need to keep in the back of our minds, that is, if it grows in importance, we may need to focus on it a little harder. All right, before I move on to the next goal, does anybody need a break? Does anybody want to make any comments on any of these? Yes,
No,
ma'am.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I just have a question. When you talked about cybersecurity, are we also participating with TML IRP cybersecurity insurance?
Yes. So in the past, do you want to comment? Go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment that I believe that there was a resolution that we took and council approved. So yes, we are. Oh, Jessica's not here, but yes, we are.
Okay, because I didn't remember. That's why I was asking.
So,
I just want to add to the legislative focus. There is a big impact that they do up in Austin, and the majority of the representatives up there have no municipal experience. And I always say it's not what's coming, it's what they broke in most cases. We have to look and see how we have to adjust to what they passed, as we witnessed with the disabled vet exemption. The steps we needed to go back and in this past year, increase our taxes because of the impact it has. And I want to add that Linda is doing a great job communicating with our state reps, communicating with our state senators to get the point across, to make them understand the impact it has on our cities. And just please pass our gratitude for the work she's doing.
yes, sir, I definitely will do that. And I'll add as well, you are the important ones to talk to the legislators. They listen to mayors and council members a lot more than they listen to staff members or TML, quite frankly. So it's important, y'all's voices are important and loud. Your voices are loud and important. And we do bring to y'all a resolution that encompasses kind of our priority areas, right? We kind of have what we're for and what we're against. And we brought that to y'all November, December, somewhere in that range. So that's something that we'll bring to you prior to every session and make sure that we're touching on the priorities. But y'all are more than welcome. And I quite frankly encourage it if you have a relationship with our elected representation to meet with them. I know several of y'all have relationships and have met. And the only thing I would ask is that it's important that we act as a body and kind of all are singing from the same sheet of music, if you will. I don't think that's really a problem for this group, but you do have you can lean on that in terms of our resolution that y'all passed, as well as staff to kind of talk about background information.
I was going to add too, with this session, it's also going to be important that we try to engage some of our residents because they will listen to them even more than they listen to us. And the Speaker of the House is not very fond of cities. So think about that as we're going through this legislative session.
Yes, sir.
I was at the Lone Star Investment Pool board meeting.
Do you want to, James, why don't you come up here on the mic?
Sorry, I was at the Lone Star Investment Pool Board meeting yesterday, and one of the legislation's items that they were concerned with and were talking about was the increasing support, it looks like, for anti-lobbying for local governments, trying to banning all organizations and the ability to do that, which, again, goes to Steve's point, that y'all's continued discussion and the citizens' continued discussions with our legislatures even more important, because soon maybe even TML might not be able to do that.
It's an excellent point.
They're mainly going after what they call taxpayer-funded lobbyists, and TML does not use taxpayer funds to lobby. We have a marketing department that goes out and get funds for that. They're mainly probably going after believe it or not, it's probably TASB that they actually are trying to hit more than TML. We usually tend to escape because we have the funding to do that, but we still need to talk about it. And we're still working with them, and right now it seems like we might be able to bypass this one, but just so you know, we are not funded by taxpayer dollars.
And then also, since Linda's not here, but we've been working, she and I have been, she should be coming back, I would say, sometime in March, once kind of the dust settles, the bill filing closes, to provide council an update with kind of the situation overview and just any other, pertinent information, so, we can have more discussion on that too.
And they're still out till February 11th, and they haven't even made their committees yet. So we still have a little bit of wiggle room to work all that out, but we're on top of it.
All right, any comments on any of the other ones before I move on to the next? Yes, ma'am.
They're also looking at how cities invest their money and making, I think it's the two between Tex Pool and another entity, the
Yes.
one that I think that you're involved in.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
briefly, I don't know how much support it's going to get, but it has an important author attached to it. So James is on the Lone Star board, and I'm actually on the Texas class board, is Texas Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System Board. They're local government investment pools, and in a nutshell, it's like a money market mutual fund for governments. You put your money in, you could get it out the next day, put $1 in, you get $1 out plus a return. There is a pool that was created by the state that used to be run by the controller's office, and they've outsourced it to Federated. And so, yeah, Federated. It's called text pool. What the legislation would do would effectively force all the other pools to shut down and move it into either text pool or into, say, the state treasury, in essence. And those funds be managed there. Well, that is counterintuitive to the Public Funds Investment Act, as well as, in terms of having a diversity of investments and in terms of a competitive environment where you just kind of have one company running everything. So I don't think it's going to go very far, but it's, just to put it in scale, it's about $200 billion they can't handle it. They can't handle it. They can't manage all that, especially if you had to divest within a year. So in essence, it's a piece of legislation that's out there that if it really made it all the way to the governor's desk and made it all the way through, it would be not good for all types of governments. And it's a reaction, some believe that it's a reaction to TASB and some funding that maybe comes from one of the pools to TASB. So, we'll see what happens from there on that one. It's one that we're watching pretty closely as well. And I know that's a little bit detailed, probably more than y'all want to know, but it highlights the notion that we need to be involved, we need to be knowledgeable about the ones that can really impact us. So, any other comments? You looked like you. On this side? Are we good to move to the next slide? All right, we're moving along pretty quickly, y'all. So next is safe and livable community. So we want to safeguard public safety, improve property conditions and overall appearance of the city, promote environmental stewardship and health, as well as maintain and expand parks and trails in our network system. So how are we doing that or intend to do that? Some of our accomplishments and future plans. So one is dealing directly with public safety, right? We've had a bunch of equipment upgrades and enhancements. We continue to do that. We intend to continue to do that as well. So for the PD, got all new body-worn cameras, a new firearm platform, I guess to make it consistent, Chief, is that right? Make your platform consistent or on a better platform. We replaced all of the tasers in the police department with a more modernized piece of equipment, as well as we were able to purchase some body armor and shields, a new canine. We replaced the canine, Sharik, not to be confused with Shakira, which Brian often does. It's Sharik, is our canine officer. We were donated a drone from the Police Alumni Association. In the fire department, we had a new ladder truck and have received and put into service a ladder truck. And that is, as you may or may not know, it's essentially a 2-year process, as it's probably even longer than that now, to buy a new piece of fire equipment like a fire truck or a ladder truck, an engine, etc. We also have an engine that's currently being constructed. And what's the delivery on that?
Dr. Stroud, we will be going up at the end of the month to design and lay all that out. Construction, we should have it here in September of October of next year.
Okay, so it's not being
Or
built
maybe
right
this
now.
year, I
Y'all are still
apologize.
working on design.
Yes.
So it's a very expensive piece of equipment that requires a lot of attention to detail. Our fire department does a really good job of that, going up to the actual factory and making sure that everything's done correctly. Fire Station 4 is also out there on the horizon, and that we've re-entered the design process for Fire Station 4. We had a situation where we had to pull back and select a different architect, but it's better to do that and kind of take your lumps right now than it is to build something that's built incorrectly, and then you live with it forever. And I've seen that happen. It's not a good thing, and we don't want that to happen. It's better to pull back now, suffer the additional time that it takes to get it done right, and do it right. I think Greg and his team have done a great job of that. Lastly is radios, and we're talking mostly in the police and the EMS area, police and EMS? Police and EMS areas. So this is a future item is something that we'll continue. We need to replace the radios to be on the most current platform, best technology. One of y'all want to comment on that? Our radio.
So our current handheld radios that we have were purchased in 2013. An average life of a radio, depending on the brand, and the city did purchase what I would call a tier 1 radio, Motorola. Average is 5 to 7 years, and we've had them since 2013, and also speaks for the officers taking care of the equipment. 98% of the current radios that we have in our inventory right now are no longer within service life. And what that means is if there's anything at all that goes wrong with them, we send them to Motorola. Motorola sends them back to us and says we're not repairing them. So we're in desperate need within the next year, 2 years max, of coming up with a new radio system. When I say radio system, it's the actual hardware for what we call a mobile unit, that goes in a car, or a handheld, which is most people refer to as a walkie-talkie.
So this is just a highlight of stuff that we've already bought and implemented or are currently implementing, and stuff that in the future that it's a challenge, right? It's something that we need to dedicate resources to, plan for, make sure that it's built into our strategy. So, yes, ma'am.
Are we still planning on the November ballot to have the public safety facility on the ballot?
So we will need a bond election. The CIP as it stands right now does not have the public safety facility that close in. It's more like it's in the 5 to 10 year range out. So it's going to be a number of years before we actually build it. And that's something, as we're going through the CIP process, that can be evaluated as a priority. And we'll do that in the coming months. We'll do that. But as it's been on the CIP, it's going to be in the 5 to 10 year range out as it exists on the CIP right now. Because you're talking about a big ticket item, probably closer to $30 to $40 million. So, all right. But to your point, and back to the legislative stuff, we used certificates of obligation for our roads and things like that. That could change. We may not have the ability to issue certificates of obligation for roads and the things that are allowed for them to be issued as it stands right now. So come September 1st, we may have to rethink our strategy on our capital improvement program and how we fund our capital improvement program, and may need to have a bond election in November. We just don't know. We have to wait and see what the legislature does. All right, any other questions? Good question. Okay, well, I'll move on from the equipment upgrades and enhancements. It's something we don't really think about, but if you add all those up, it's in the more than $1 million range. So it's expensive. The radios are expensive, but it's something it's the equipment that gets used every single day. Next, we have facility construction and renovation. So some of the things we've done already is the dispatch, police, that was a small item, but I want to highlight it because it cost a couple of $100,000 to do, but it made their life and the way they operate a lot more efficient. It's a more comfortable space. If you've ever been over there or been around dispatchers, it's probably the toughest job. I mean, these guys have to be out on the street, but they got a tough job too. And it takes a lot of dedication for that position. And having a good environment within which to work is very important. And the best thing about it is I think we got a grant for almost all of it. So we didn't, this is something that we got a grant for, and we're able to upgrade significantly. So, next is I just have it listed as county facility. So on FM 78, the county has where the tax office is and all that. They have some unutilized space there. We are in negotiations with the county to put, I believe it's not evidence, but Jim, what are we putting in the county facility? Turn your mic.
Sorry, sir. Our intent is to move our property room, investigations, and our crime victims liaison,
Okay.
which will free up space to allow us to do some remodeling at the main station to hopefully get us through when we move on the public safety facility for 5 to 8 years.
Right. So that's the bridge, because we're maxed out across the parking lot over here in the police station. That's the bridge to get us to the public safety facility. The good news is we got to pay to remodel it, but they're not going to charge us any rent.
That's correct, and I have that on an upcoming agenda item.
So y'all will be asked to vote on that soon. So, but it is a good deal for the city, and it helps utilize the space. There's probably even some synergies that'll be built between the city and the county, at least that precinct. And we're grateful for the county and for Commissioner Carpenter, but it's something that's going to help us quite a bit and be a really, quite frankly, a cheap way to do it until we can get into our public safety facility down the road.
City,
Yes,
Steve,
sir.
by public safety facility, will the EOC be there, or how do we handle big incidents here?
Okay, so
Will
first
there-
part of the question, go ahead.
Nothing's been finalized, but absolutely, when we look at the public safety building, working with the other disciplines in public safety, that we are looking at having an EOC at that new public safety building.
Yeah, typically it would be, there's no plans drawn up or anything like that, but I believe the intention was to have police over there, Fire Station 1, and EMS. So, consolidate what's over here on campus here, and it would move over there on that site. And in my past experience, it's been a hardened building, so it is a great place to put your EOC. And, it's something that is survivable. Right now, we kind of operate out of here, and we don't really, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, or whoever, we don't really have an EOC, right? We kind of just operate.
At present, we don't have an adequate facility space-wise to run the EOC as we should. We would have to piecemeal that a little bit together. Even in the old space that was in Fire Station 1, it was nowhere near adequate room-wise. So we would use different pieces and rooms to put different areas together.
And we are, as an interim measure, trying to find a place that could serve as an EOC, correct? And I don't want to jump ahead, but maybe
No.
county? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, in Station 4, we're going to have a space that we can serve as an EOC, more of an operating center in the event something happened for the city and its partners. We didn't have that per se when we had Snowmageddon, and we identified that as a little bit of a problem and something we can improve upon. From that point, identifying alternate locations, there's a couple of strategies in addition to what Chief Lowry said that I think we can talk through and better serve not just Schertz, but maybe even the region. But that's bringing in partners, and that's a bigger up project. So we're looking at that as well.
And I know we already talked about it a little bit, but Fire Station 4, if you're not familiar, it's over off Wiederstein on property that the city owns. And our adjusted timeline is what, Greg? We're re-entering design.
Yes, so at present on Fire Station 4, we're working with our owner's reps to get some geo work done and moving on while the architect is working on finishing our basic plans. From that, they're beginning the conversations with IT on those needs, and then we have them in touch with different partners in our city to where we can try to do things in advance. As you know, sometimes people wait till the end, and then there's this, through the process, it slows down. We're going to try to get ahead of that and let them all talk in advance so we get through the process a lot quicker. From that, The estimated time should be September of '26 at present. I'm waiting for a new calendar date on it.
Okay, great. And then the public safety facility we talked about a little bit. The city does own property right now. The place that's been identified is kind of that triangle. It's on the other side of Deeds Creek from where Community Circle Park is going to be. Is that correct still? The targeted area on the other side of the ditch. Deeds Creek. Exactly. But the city does already have a location, and we do already own the property, which is a good thing because we won't have to find that later. All right, any questions about the facilities or renovations? I'll round it out by saying this. We're doing everything we can to utilize the resources we already have to their maximum capacity before we go and just try and build more and more and more. We're renovating space that we currently have, or making a deal if we can with another entity to gain efficiencies. So we're doing our best to be the best caretakers. Yes, ma'am.
Is there still the plan to move the courts here and utilize the municipal courts as office space as well?
Yes.
Are we still?
That is correct.
Okay.
So you want to comment on that?
Yes, I was just going to say, and James can provide a little bit more detail if needed, but the plan right now is to start having courts held in here in March, so fairly soon. And then as far as the remodeling, renovation of that space over there, it would just be dependent upon kind of, the plan, the facilities plan going forward.
So, yeah, purposing that space over there, moving them in here for court days, that kind of thing. So, another one, kind of a smaller one, is Parks Admin Building. They're currently in a building, and we would reconfigure and redo that space. If you've been over there, you've seen it. They're kind of cramped in there, and it's, needs some refresh. But that's a lot more, it's a better utilization of the property that we already have, rather than going out and trying to acquire or rent something else. So.
One other question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we renovate space in the other building, are we also going to put in space for like nursing moms?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. That is something that has come to light, to the forefront recently, and I think it's something we're going to need to take into consideration when we talk about building space. Something that's probably needs to be talked about. So, all right. Any other facility-related questions? Is there something we're missing on this? All right. Prost. Does that make anybody else think of a big mug of beer? I don't know. It's a Prost. All right. Parks and recreation, open space and trails. Parks and recreation, open space and trails. This is our Prost plan that Lauren and the Parks Department, it's essentially their master plan. They brought it to y'all, and she presented it, I believe, in December. And it's really well thought out plan, and got a lot of input from our community, which is the essence of what we want to try and do in terms of incorporating this into our strategic planning process, is to really understand what it is that our community wants and what our residents want, and then putting that into action the best way we can. So the Prost, some of the things we've already done. We got the soccer field lights that are nearly complete, I believe. When are we turning those on, Lauren? March 1st, when the first soccer ball gets kicked. No, I don't know. But yeah, we're turning on the lights soon. And that was a $1.2 million enhancement to that facility. Also, we've got Hilltop Park, and that is what, Lauren, why don't you come up here? Come over here to the hot seat, or you can sit in my seat, whatever you want. Just don't eat my fruit.
Hilltop Park right now is a $1.5 million investment funded by Texas Parks and Wildlife Grant and our matching funds. In our Dry Comal Creek property that we acquired off of 482 on Bunker Street, that's also a grant-funded project. And then Community Circle Park, again, that would be an EDC-funded project. And we're in the process right now of working on RFPs to get all these projects to construction.
Right, so, if y'all haven't picked up on it yet, reading left to right, they generally, the way these are listed, things we've already done or are about to finish up and things we'll be doing out into the future. The Hilltop and Dry Kamal Creek are grant funded for the most part, and we've got it. We're moving pretty quickly on those because those grants have stipulations, is that correct? So.
Correct, you have a 5-year timeline to get those projects completed when they're grant funded.
So we should see those done pretty quickly. And then the trails is something that's identified in our resident survey year over year as probably the number 2 priority, hike and bike trails throughout the community. It's something that it gets implemented in a variety of ways. A good example being 1518 project. It's gonna have, a 10-foot trail on one side and 6-foot sidewalk on the other side. I'm pretty excited about that because but then also we'll probably have our own projects that we'll do that we'll fund in our CIP that a developer or it won't be included in, say, another CIP project like a road. It may be something that we fund on our own. But putting all that together and linking those together, having them incorporated into neighborhoods and linking neighborhoods together is something that I think in the long run will really benefit the city. It'll really enhance our mobility in terms of being able to bike and walk and jog, that kind of thing. And then Community Circle, Lauren touched on that. That is a little bit further out. Trails, of course, are ongoing. Community Circle, I think, is in the 5-year timeline, 5 years out. Big project right over here behind City Hall next to the ball fields. I have been told a million times that it needs to have pickleball courts, just saying, might want to think about that. But it needs to have pickleball courts as part of it. It's space that the city already owns. It's prime real estate, and it's a great place for a park. I think everybody's excited about it, and I guess the good news there is that it has a funding source associated with it, and from the EDC and their 4B sales tax, so that's a good thing. And that will evolve. Y'all will be in part of that process in terms of input, I'm sure, and it's something that I think is going to be a big enhancement for the city and a big move forward. Something that's not listed on there is that, even when you're thinking about parks and you're thinking about the future and future parks, I don't really know, maybe somebody knows, when did we buy all this land for this campus? But it wasn't last year, in the 70s, right? So with that mindset and that focus, the land was bought for all of this campus and the ball fields in the 1970s. Our growth areas at this point in time are southern Schertz and far north. We need to be looking forward with a forward mindset to acquiring property in southern Schertz and possibly in far northern Schertz. So that's just something that's in terms of looking forward, our strategic planning efforts, is that really the big thing is if you can lock down the land now and buy it, you can deal with building on it later. Right, Lauren? All right, good. Okay, any questions on that? Comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'm hearing from the soccer folks that they need shade and irrigation and I guess expanding the soccer fields. Is what I'm hearing. Is that in the plan?
One of those is in the works. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yes, I was going to say, we do have a need for more athletic fields by 2030. That's what the PROS plan calls for. So like Steve mentioned, we'll be looking for properties that would be key for those type of athletic facilities. And yes, irrigation would take us to the next level, right? We're currently, we've talked about we're kind of bronze, silver level. Maybe we want to get to gold or platinum one day. But that we want to really work to use reclaimed water in the city, right? Instead of the potable water. So that would be our goal, is to try to build out the reclaimed water system so that we can utilize that for irrigation. But it comes at a high cost. Yes, we'll work that in the CIP in the future.
And with leagues and things of that nature, we will be looking to partner with them in accomplishing some of those goals. It's incumbent upon the community to invest, but especially when it's a little bit specialized, it's really incumbent upon the users to have a stake in it as well. So we'll be looking for future expansions to include a stake from the stakeholders of that piece of property so. All right, anything else? Looked like you wanted to ask something. Okay, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just like you said, our recreation trails and parks is always right there in the top three, citizen desires. So it's one of those things, you're never going to finish the project or projects, and it's just planning ahead on what's next. So keep going.
All right, then also that's listed there is the Schertz Housing Energy Efficiency Program, affectionately known as SHEEP. I will let maybe Brian or Lisa comment on that, but and describe go ahead. Turn your mic.
So yeah, sorry, the SHEEP program is the new project we just started kind of end of last year, which is the federal grant program to help folks improve their homes to achieve greater energy efficiency. So we've kind of rolled that out, big splash, started trying to get folks signed up. I will say that we got a notice yesterday that we're trying to see if it applies to us or why we would have gotten it if it didn't apply to us based on a pause on federal funding. So at this point, we're a little bit of a pause mode to try to get some answers from folks. So hopefully we'll do that shortly.
So, and that one's not a huge program, but it is an example when you look back at the actual objectives for this goal. It touches on a couple of them: promoting environmental stewardship and health, right? Better health for some of our folks that really can't afford to maybe upgrade that, and then improving the property conditions and overall appearance of the city. It's more on the property condition side, but it is something that's important, and in terms of looking forward, it might be something that we look to grow. And then lastly, this is on here, and this is more of a mention than a probably in-depth discussion backed up by data and facts and things of that nature. But I'll lead off, and maybe Jason can fill in some color. But our EMS department, our EMS department, as you know, is a regional service. We serve the city of Schertz, but we also serve a lot of surrounding communities, including, say, Cibolo, Universal City, the base, most of unincorporated Guadalupe County, in a variety of other smaller areas. And so we have a large service. In fact, when I was prepping for my interview to come here, I was looking at the budget, and I'm looking at the staffing, and I go, oh my gosh, why do they have 80 people in the EMS department? Well, we have 93 people in the EMS department now, and the reason why we do is because we serve this enormous area and we cover a lot of space, and they do an excellent job doing it. Now, the caveat is, now into the future, we have it set up as what's called an enterprise fund, and all that is a fancy name for saying the way, instead of being in the general fund, this is an enterprise fund like you would have for your water and sewer department, where we operate like a business, right? So we operate like a business. The accounting is more like it would be in public accounting, and it just functions differently. So all of those folks not in the city of Schertz that we serve, we charge them for the service, but we also generate revenues from medical bills for transports. And because of changes in the state law, as well as a changing environment in a growing world, we're faced with significant financial challenges with the EMS department. And It's not a discussion we need to have right now. I mean, we're happy to answer any questions you might have about it, but it is something that we need to pay close attention to, and we really need to plan for moving into the future, because we are on a trajectory we believe that is not necessarily sustainable. So, and it's due to a number of factors, not the least of which being the class and comp that we did, right? We did a class and comp. There was a conscious decision to make that the number one priority 2 budgets ago, and to try our best to maintain it. And that's for all aspects of city operations. So, and that includes EMS. So it is a challenge that we have, but I will say the fruits of that labor are is somebody a department that had a like 30% turnover rate and 18 to 20% vacancy rate is sitting at under 10, and typically is under 10 and at points fully staffed, which I don't think has happened. So, and you know, there's other aspects too, like moving from 24-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts. Maybe requires a little more people and maybe a little more expensive, but the decision was made years ago to try and transition to that, and because operationally it makes more sense. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason if you got anything you need to add to that.
No, I think you hit all of the key points. Senate Bill 2476, which banned balance billing for us, that cut about $500,000 in revenue. You said the class and comp. Also the TASP reduction. So TASP is the Texas Ambulance Supplemental Payment Program. We were getting reimbursed for patients who had Medicaid and our charity care patients. That has reduced significantly as well over the years. I think our biggest reimbursement one year was $400,000. We're now getting, it's less than $100,000 as well. So those 3 things really hurt us.
And I'll say, in a situation like this, any situation of what we do, and you're looking at a long-range plan, your options are simple. You either increase revenues, reduce service, or some combination of the two. So we're gonna do our homework, and we're gonna come back to you, and we're gonna make a plan that is something. Don't know what it is right now, but it's gonna be something to make sure that it's sustainable over time, that we don't put ourselves into an insolvency position in terms of cash, but we want to make sure that it's something that's a viable and sustainable, highest level service that we can provide over time. So, questions? I know I threw a grenade out there, but any questions?
No, it sounds like we're operating in the red. Any idea how much?
So, James, I don't know if you, a lot of the finer data, we don't have our audit done for 24, but in terms of 23 was our last ACFR that we completed. I think we were a $400,000 in terms of net position change. So we had a negative net position change of 400,000. I think this year we're targeting closer to $1 million. So in terms of net position, when you consider all of our assets and all of our liabilities, we were at the end of 23 about $2.3 million positive, $2.5 million positive, but that is depleting. So and there's a difference between being in a negative net position and being cash flow negative, essentially. And it's really the cash flow and the operating deficit that we're facing right now. And that's something that you don't want to sustain that for a long time. Yes, sir.
We just increased the rates for the cities. So when we're looking at the proposals, I think we should also, when we're considering the rate increase, bring the cities in and the county to determine exactly what they need to know what our situation is and why the rates are going to go up. And if we're looking at $1,750 per person at this time. I mean, if we got to go to 20, we have to go to 20. Most of these cities cannot afford EMS services, but on their own, on their
Absolutely.
own. But it's something that we should consider also is bringing the cities together, forum like this, so that we can discuss the rates.
Well, you're absolutely correct, Mayor, and you touched on something that is very important to highlight, is the economies of scale that are gained by doing it the way we do it are tremendous. If certain entities wanted to go do it on their own, rather than their costs going up by X percent, it would be 5X%, right? It's not something that you can really just get into the business and do. There are a lot of economies of scale, like I said, gained by doing it the way we do it and collectivizing that. Now, I'll make this comment, and this is a Steve comment, is that my belief is that everybody who participates should shoulder the burden. And it's our job to make sure that everybody is fully informed on the scenarios and what it is that we're facing and how we need to adjust, but that burden needs to fall to all the customer base. So, yes, sir.
Sounds like this is another legislative high point as well, because this is a combination of state and federal rules that have changed, causing the change in the way we work.
That is correct. Senate Bill 2476, of course, is state, and they kind of mirrored the federal law on balanced billing as well. And then also the task production is state as well. Yes, sir.
And saying that, but I don't want to ignore the fact that some of it is us increasing the operational cost by making sure that the salaries are competitive and we can keep good people. That is a component of it, and it's not. I mean, we're not trying to ignore that, but it is a culmination of things, like you pointed out. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, there are certain council members that have a certain level of expertise in this area, so we may lean on them for information. So, but it is an issue that's out there. We want to bring it up early enough to where, if it's something we need to deal with over the next 3 years, 5 years, we want you guys to be aware of it, that we're going to have to address this. So, all right. No other questions? I'll move on. Does anybody need a break? It's 9:50. Do we need a quick break?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break.
Okay. How long? 5 minutes?
What is it, 15-minute break?
10 minutes? Or come back at 10? 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Okay. It's easier math. you want to turn his mic on? Mayor's mic?
All right, if you can please take your seats so we can go ahead and continue.
All right, Mayor, thank you. Staff, I think we're ready to start. All right, so moving along, Mayor and Council, our next goal is infrastructure investment. Of course, this is a big one. We've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but just to cover the 4 objectives that are under that goal: develop and maintain roadways, sidewalks, and transportation infrastructure, develop and maintain water, wastewater, and drainage infrastructure, provide an adequate water supply now and into the future, and support strategic investment in city facilities. So in terms of accomplishments and future plans, this is one where we've done quite a bit recently, but we also have a ton more to do. This is something that is going to drive us for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So street maintenance, as you're aware, 2 years ago on the list, it's still written on my wall in my office, is street maintenance and maintaining a more aggressive posture in terms of our street maintenance program. I believe we've seen some significant gains. Larry, why don't you come on? We've seen some significant gains, and we've started down the road of being able to kind of measure our performance as well as maybe a plan for the future and redirect and kind of gain more resources for it. So some of the things we've done already is you see Larry for the street maintenance component, and then John gets up and tells a horrible engineer level joke, but he's dealing more with some of the maintenance level stuff and then some of our capital improvement level stuff. But the dashboard for street maintenance that's on the webpage has been an excellent addition. It shows us and the entire world and y'all where we're doing the work we're doing. It has a picture of the work that's being done, and you can scale it by time frame to see how much we're able to get done and where it's being done. So it's been a really nice tool. It's still evolving, and it's still something that we'll probably learn to utilize better over time. But I think it's been a really good addition. It's a very, for people like me, it's a very visual way to look at everything I just mentioned, performance, et cetera, and allows us to kind of plan and do a better job there. We're doing the quarterly updates. We'll probably tweak those and enhance those over time. And maybe as we gain the ability to, as water passes under the bridge and we have more data to deal with, Larry will bring you more of a performance-based kind of look at things each quarter, and how much and how where, and is it a gain, is it a slowdown, is it a maintaining, all those kinds of things. As we get some water under the bridge and we do more and more, we'll have that data compiled and we'll be able to measure. That's kind of why we set it up. We set it up and really kind of got it going about 7 months ago maybe, and we'll just build over time. And those quarterly updates will be, I don't want to say more detailed, but they'll be more impactful in terms of the information that you're able to receive. Hopefully we'll be able to package it up in a way where it's not just a bunch of numbers or just dumping a bunch of data on you. It's a visual representation. We can show you progress, more dashboardy stuff, but with good solid data behind it. Some other things that we've done already, whole truck, you guys saw that, and I'm sure you saw the Now You Know, y'all watching that? No. The pothole truck doing repairs, that's an all-in-one vehicle that can carry the asphalt, that, has the equipment. We can do a patch repair instead of just throwing and going in a hole and with some cold mix or running around with some hot mix and try and dump it out real fast. So that's been a big gain for us. It was an expensive piece of equipment, but it's something that I think is, in the long run, it's going to help us a bunch. We also had a backhoe, I guess, that we're using for street maintenance. And then not this year, but the prior year, we bought a laydown machine. Or was it the year before that? Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. It was on the expanded program list. We got a laydown machine, and we replaced our roller, so our sheep's foot roller, our pad foot roller, so we can do a lot more area and have less downtime on the machines. So.
And what are we able to do with that?
So the pad foot roller really is good for the subgrade and base layers, and so when we're doing larger patches, we can really compact that subgrade and base a lot better than you can in the larger areas. And then the laydown machine, it's versatile, so we can use it for the smaller ones. Obviously bigger than the patch truck, so kind of the 3x3. But if we're doing a utility trench, it just makes it a lot quicker. Also, we can do some larger overlays instead of having to contract that work out.
Okay, good.
So Larry, maybe just as an example, recently we had the issue come up with some of the manholes that folks have noted. All of that equipment we would now use to repair those situations, correct? Whereas in the past, we had equipment we couldn't count on, wasn't always working because it was old, we'd have to borrow, we'd have to rent. So now we can sort of schedule this stuff better, know our equipment's gonna work, get out there, do it ourselves. The folks become better at using it. I mean, it's significant.
Anything else on that? All right. So that's kind of where we've started, and this is a good example of equipment that we've invested in, that we're able to springboard and continue on with our maintenance program. We're likely going to need more equipment at some point to enhance that, but right now I think our bigger challenge is staffing. And so in our staffing plan that was adopted 4 years ago, we've been able to really address most of the areas. One area where we're still lacking in the general fund, say, is streets, and maybe increasing staffing there. We did quite a bit on the other side of the Public Works house. On the water and sewer side, we were able to add staff and beef that up. But in concert with that, there are things like, we had the presentation the other night from Sarah and our consultant about the RFP process for the garbage collection. So to give you an example, is we, right now, if somebody has limbs out on their front yard or out in front of the house, they can hire us, Public Works crew, to come, streets folks, to come out and chip that wood at a cost of, say, what, $40 an hour or something like that. So we send 3 guys out from the streets crew to chip wood at $40 an hour. Okay. In our new contract, that would be something that we would look to redirect. We would effectively outsource that function and probably won't be chipping, just to make that clear. But the bulky and the brush pickup and all those things would be included in the contract, done by the contractor. It's a much more efficient way to do it. It's very little additional workload for them. And we would be able to pull that and redirect those folks back to street maintenance and street related stuff, core street related stuff. So that's something that we hope to achieve through, say, the garbage contract. So we're looking for opportunities like that. If any other opportunities are like that, to redirect and put those resources back into the street maintenance, that's what we're gonna do. I don't know if there are any more opportunities, but we're gonna continue to look and see if there are. And another thing that's worthy of note that is an investment, but we are planning to invest in that, is street striping. And being more aggressive in our street striping throughout the city. It's a challenge with asphalt roads, especially when we have a new asphalt road, where You paint it, and then you turn around, and there's a bunch of asphalt on top of it from people driving. So we intend to be more deliberate and aggressive in doing that with a street striping program in the future. So, any questions? This is a biggie for us. It's something that doesn't get a lot of the flash, but it is something we get a lot of comments about, and it is a gigantic asset of the cities that we believe that we need to continuously invest in the maintenance aspect of it. And not just, and you guys see the chart that John Nowak puts up there where, you know, there's a point of diminishing returns on those assets that if you don't maintain them, the cost to do the things that we can do sooner becomes exponentially more the longer, you know, once you hit the tipping point and it starts going down. So making sure that we do everything we can, it's expensive and it hurts sometimes, but it saves you a ton of money in the long run if you spend the money now to maintain and extend life. So, anything you want to add, Larry? All right. Any questions, council? Any questions? Okay. All right, I'll move on then. The CIP, we talked about it a little bit from the outset with the CIP and the operating budget. Just a little more color here. Where we are now is we've created the document and we've identified and prioritized just about every project that we know of. And Kathy and Larry, or whoever has a capital project, Greg, they do what's called a project sheet. And on that project sheet, they describe what the project is. And they have a timeline, and they have a funding source with a timeline of the funding, and they have a timeline of building the thing, whether it's design into construction and how that plays out. And then it has an impact on the operating budget. It's something that's really important, kind of like I mentioned before. You don't want to build a fire station and not be able to staff the thing. So don't build a fire station if you can't staff the thing. And then it also has a map. And you would be shocked at how important it is to have that map sitting there and be able to say, this is where the road is, or the sewer line is, or whatever it is that's being built. And all of that together is a lot of work. And I'm emphasizing it because it's a lot of work, but it adds a ton of value to what we do. Because we are able to keep track, building from the ground up, from the individual project, the entire list of projects, prioritizing those projects, and then figuring out when we can actually, with the manpower that we have, build these things and develop a schedule. And then overlay with that, James has the task of saying, all right, at our current tax rate or our current water rates, or assuming a certain increase in water and sewer rates, we can afford to do these things over this amount of time. And then putting all that together, it was a big job, but we got it done. It's not something that is perfect right now or is ever static. It doesn't stay exactly the same. It's something that y'all will look at and we'll look at every single year. There's going to be tweaks, there's going to be adjustments, there's going to be things that we look at and go, okay, well, this one needs to move up on the priority, or we can't really do that because of whatever the factors might be. We got to move it out. So it is a living, breathing thing that is constantly evaluated. And even on the back end, as projects are in process, we'll review those and we'll look at them and we'll gauge the progress. Because one thing that's in the future may be dependent on that thing that's being done right now, and finishing that to move on to the next is important. So using that document and not necessarily the document itself, but that structure, and then evaluating and monitoring the projects that are in process, we're able to see balances. Is this one coming in under? Is it coming in over? Move things around, or maybe move it out to a future phase. There's a ton of moving parts. It's something that's really, really important for us to use. So we created the document, we identified the projects, we've identified kind of a schedule, and we've identified funding strategies. But some other things that are in the future that really are key to the CIP are the water and sewer master plans. So those are being done right now. We'll bring those back soon. March, they'll be completed and presented to the council in March. And that, Kathy, do you want to maybe come up here and maybe talk for a minute on what is a water and sewer master plan, and what are we going to use it for?
Okay, so we did come last council meeting to have you authorize the public hearing or schedule the public hearing for the impact fee updates. Well, part of developing those impact fee updates was actually developing the water and wastewater master plans. And then part of the master plans becomes the CIP for the impact fees, but the real base is those water and wastewater master plans, which come out of land use projections and evaluations of our current system to determine what improvements we need going forward to continue to serve growth in the city. So we'll probably be coming the first meeting in March to request adoption of these updated water and wastewater master plans. And then we'll follow that up with the impact fee update.
So, like Kathy just mentioned, the next thing on there is water and sewer and impact fee updates, and you can kind of see how they go hand in hand. You got to do one before the other. It's a big part of they have a separate CIP. Brian had this discussion yesterday in terms of talking about CIP, but they have their own CIP because there's rules and laws that govern how you can use impact fees, but they have an effect on the overall CIP. Because if a portion of that project has to be funded by another source that's competitive to everything else. So anyway, in the grand scheme of things, and even being able to complete work and dedicate resources, the water and sewer master plans are critical. And then the impact fees is another discussion that if we need to have that discussion now conceptually about impact fees, we can, but essentially what it does, an impact fee does, is places the burden of expansion on the person who's new to the system, right? And instead of putting it solely on the current resident. When you don't have impact fees, that's where it ends up. It ends up in the general rate, water and sewer rates for the city, and it gets paid for that way. Or you can defray a portion of the cost, or a lot of the cost, or some of the cost by having impact fees. And that puts it on the person who's joining the community. City has traditionally taken that stance of saying, okay, some portion of the cost is going to be borne by the new resident, by the new business, because of the impact that they're placing on the expansion of systems that serve. Is that an accurate way of describing it?
That's accurate.
Okay.
But the master plans include also the improvements for existing development.
Okay. Well, very good.
City manager, so the master plans, the impact fees, and so is economic development, are they sitting at the table? Because it seems like they all sort of intermingle together. Future economic development and the impact fees, and to what extent impact fees have on, no?
I think, well, we have a master plan, comprehensive master plan, right? Brian, you want to chime in?
Yeah, so again, I think what I would start with is most applicable is that overall water and sewer master plan, right? That's really what infrastructure do we need to build to catch up from where we're behind, meet future growth, right? That's the plan that lays out from an engineering standpoint. What it then gets into is this question of when we come back for our normal, regular city CIP, right, with streets and water and sewer and drainage and city facilities, part of what we do in prioritizing there that comes to you guys is staff talks about where we have growth and development and where we see growth and development, right? So when we're trying to prioritize, do I need to build a water line over here or do I need to build it over here? Part of what staff does is says, well, what is out there kicking around, right? So where are we getting development applications coming in through Lisa's folks? Where are Scott and his folks coming to us and saying, hey, we're having a bunch of folks kick around with that, right? So yeah, the development of the general city CIP, that takes into those factors, including what economic development is working and seeing. and we incorporate that in to try to prioritize and plan for that, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure that that was part of the input data, and that's the outcome.
Right. And I'll even say this, you know, that as Kathy mentioned, one of the ways we help fund that infrastructure, just one, are those impact fees, those water and sewer impact fees. And so, as you may know, we go to the Planning and Zoning Commission under the guise of the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, and they give us a recommendation. We actually went, even though it's not required, to the EDC board and talked them through that, right? Because the decision for you guys coming up is, here's all the infrastructure we need to build to keep up with development. Here's the cost of that. Here's how much development we're going to have. Here's how much we could charge new development to help pay for that. And the question for folks is, who do you want to pay for it, and how quick do you want that to get paid for, right? So you could say, we only want new development for pay for half of that, right? But then what that means is we want our existing ratepayers to pay for the other half, and it may mean it comes in slower. Or we may say, well, it's not fair to have existing residents pay for that. New development coming in needs to pay its own way, right? You could go that route. The other part that's an element is EDC's role in helping incentivize development, right? They get a big project we really want, but their impact fee would be really high, much as they've done in the past. As part of the incentives they've offered to effectively reimburse for those impact fees. And we can be selective on, hey, here's a project that really brings a lot to the community. Here's a project that doesn't bring as much to the community, and we would perfectly fine if it went someplace else. We wouldn't necessarily incent at the highest level. So I think there are a lot of decision points, and these things are interrelated, and agree with you entirely. EDC needs to have a seat at the table, Planning and Zoning Commission, because they see these applications, a seat at the table. Council obviously needs to have a seat at the table as well as we try to make those decisions. So I will tell you, it is going to be a very tough meeting or a couple of meetings when you guys have to do this, because there's no perfect answer when you have to levy these charges against folks. Right? But somebody's got to pay for it, or we're going to find ourselves further behind. That's going to hurt our ability to bring in economic development, support residential development, things like that. But good point.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, so that's kind of what's in progress now, and you'll see that play out over the next few months. In the future, we're going to be doing the same process for our roads. So we'll be doing a road master plan, and then a road impact fee, or just a road impact fee update. We already have the master plan. And then another thing that was in there, this is a smaller item, but just in terms of our CIP, identifying gaps in the sidewalks, things of that nature. That's an example of something that came up through the process. Now it's something we're adding to the CIP, identifying, you know, where do we have these gaps, and is it likely to develop where somebody would, you know, if somebody builds something, they got to put in a sidewalk. Well, if you got areas where it's never going to be built, or back when it developed, it wasn't required, those kinds of things, you know, do we have a plan to address those? That's something that's been added to the CIP. Any other questions on that? All right, Southern Schertz. So this, I wanted to put this on there because it's something that's, it's like one of those issues like the EMS issue where it's out there. It's not something we have a solution for right now, and it's not something that we're gonna have a discussion and answer every single question about, but it is something that to bring up. And there are a couple of things floating out there that will be affecting us over the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years, because we are starting to see a tremendous amount of growth on the south side. So if you're not aware, we've got developments like Saddlebrook and Carmel, and then some others that are planned close by that are gaining a lot of momentum. We've got Crossvine that's in full swing. I drive by it twice a day, every day, and I've seen literally in the last 6 months, probably 100 homes be built in just the 2 new phases that they've opened up. And even the furthest south phase, you're starting to see homes be built in there. And so it's moving quickly in southern Schertz. And it's not something that impacts you in 1 year, but it rolls up on you pretty quickly when you're talking about capital planning, providing services like water, sewer, and roads. Of course, you know, right now you see 1518. It's a gigantic $74 million project that's going on right now. It's my belief, and I think a lot of folks would agree with me, that once that's completed in 3 years, you'll see an acceleration of development along 78 and around 78. I'm sorry, 1518 in southern Schertz, and especially the homes and the impact that the homes put on things like our wastewater treatment. Right now, we've got a couple of lift stations that will send sewer up to the north side plant for CCMA, but then also CCMA has constructed a plant on the south side that will soon be taking waste from places like Crossvine and Holly's Cove and all of the subdivisions over there, smaller subdivisions. So that is a big enhancement. That's a big improvement. It's going to handle some of the flow. But we also, as soon as we turn on that tap, we're faced with a scenario where we're going to need to expand the plant right away. And that's a big capital expenditure. It'll be shared among a couple of different entities, but it's a big capital expenditure that we'll need to address because of the rate of development, the acceleration of development in southern Schertz, and it's not going to stop. That's where most of the land is that's available, and it's where we'll continue to see developers come. And I think in 5 years, we're going to open our eyes, and it's going to look pretty different down there. So some of the challenges, not all of the challenges, but two of the major challenges are expanding the wastewater treatment plant. CCMA will do that, but we will be a part owner in that. And the Cibolo West sewer line. If you're not familiar with that, that would be another trunk line that's on the west side of Cibolo Creek, and it'll serve some of the middle areas all the way down to the southern areas. And I mean, Kathy can delve into some of the engineering and the actual aspects of where it would serve, but just know that it's southern Schertz, probably lower Seguin and down eventually. Go ahead.
So it will also actually take flow from even north of Schaefer Road.
Okay.
All the way down treatment plant road. And it will allow us to decommission 2 of the larger lift stations that are currently operational, and that's we call it the Corbett lift station. It's also known as the Croton lift station that's in Rhine Valley, and then the Saddlebrook lift station that was just built. And there's a tremendous number of those larger farm tracts that are already coming in with development interest that would feed into this line.
So it's something that we can't ignore now. Brian, did you want to add to that or no? Okay. It's something that, since it takes a long time to build major trunk lines and expand water and sewer plants, it's something that we need to be planning for now, and something that we need to actually take some action very, very soon. Not necessarily build the thing right away, but take some action in moving that direction. As you are probably aware, we've already started with an alignment study for the Cibolo West trunk line, and that's in process right now. It's kind of step 1, and then we would do what after that?
After that, we'll have to acquire easements along the route for the construction of the line, and then do design of the line and construction.
So it's a process that takes multiple years to do. You don't do it in 6 months. So worst case scenario is we wait too long, and now we have all of these homes, developers that want to build thousands of homes, 3,000 or 4,000 homes, and we have to put a moratorium in place until we can get caught up. Or we continue to build lift stations to take it the opposite direction. That will be a sunk capital cost when we take it offline and gravity it down to the south. So it's something that's important, bringing it up now just as an issue, because that's where you'll see a lot of focus and effort over the next few years. So Anything else I want to add? Any questions, council? All right. The SSLGC and CVLGC, this is just as another issue, as I mentioned. We are half owners of the Schertz local government corporation. We currently receive probably 90% of our water from there or more. Is that right, Larry?
Of the tier one water, yeah. It sends a lot of water through the pipeline, but yeah. So capacity-wise, from our well fields, we receive the majority of it.
But no. In terms of the water that we use as a city, most of it is sourced from
95%.
SSLGC.
95 plus.
95+%. Okay, so we have some wells that we own that are separate, but mostly where we get our water is from SSLGC. Right now, SSLGC is doing a capacity study, and we are looking at that on our end in terms of what our ultimate need is as a community. We're not quite there yet, but it's something that we are taking a good hard look at, in that we believe that we might be able to get what we need from the SSLGC. Now, we are also half owners of the CVLGC, and that is an entity. There's no infrastructure. We are in it with Cibolo. So we're just evaluating the entire structure moving forward. What is our ultimate need, and where do we need to get that from? Water sourcing and getting water is expensive. It's been a huge investment that the city has made, the city of Schertz and the city of Seguin have both made. But I think it was a really, really smart move to do that 25 years ago, because we're seeing the fruit of that right now. And where do we need to be in the future? We're looking at the best way we can do that, what the most efficient and cost-effective way is to do that. So just know that that'll come back as an issue for the council. Y'all are the decision makers in that regard, and you control half of both entities. And so there's some decisions that'll need to be made in the future. So any questions, comments about that? Yes, sir.
No, there's everything you said. I was just wondering if there was an opportunity to sort of get some of the citizens or to invest, or how GVC sort of calls you up and sort of says, hey, have you thought about doing solar panels on your house? What about catching water collection, rainwater collection? Do we ever, how do I say it?
Like a cistern program?
Yeah, do we ever promote that between citizens?
I think that's something that maybe we would do at the city level, more likely than not. It's an idea, and we could investigate that and maybe workshop it for the council, get you some data, and maybe bring back, our workshop format that we have when we, before our council meetings. But it's something we can certainly make a note of and research. But I would think that would be a program that we would do. There are community I worked in before. We had that program. We had a program like that. So.
Just real quick on SSLGC, the topic of water conservation is always there. They don't want to do a water conservation program per se. They just expect the cities to, remind the people that we are a limited capacity, but at the same time, SSLGC's got adequate water supplies for many years for more population. So it's just a matter of running the pipes and building the treatment plants. And those take many, many years to get approved and finalized. So they got one more coming online real soon. So.
Like anything else, any capital project, it has a long lead time, but even longer, because of what Councilman Brown just said, is that, you've got more of some significant, I don't want to say onerous is probably the wrong word, but a lot of requirements to get there, just to get to the point where you can start building. And the building part is a long time as well. So, but yes, we've got, for those of you who aren't familiar with SSLGC, we have 2 well fields, one in Gonzales County, one in Guadalupe County, and there's 2 treatment facilities essentially, right? So right now the SSLGC is in the process of opening up that new well field and opening up the new treatment facility and transporting the water. And it's a big deal, it's a big change for us, and it helps us with our capacity issues, or in terms of the capacity that we'll have access to. It's just how much more do we need, and how much more is that going to cost, and what's the best way to get it? So, Larry, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just mention that obviously the community a long time ago made a huge investment in that, and it's been great for us. You know, other folks in the region have struggled farther behind, but it is a long planning horizon, and we need to start today, right? Because we do know that there's likely a need. We don't know exactly what that is, right? But we know there is a need, and we know that there's a couple parameters that we have these, the requirements that we have, right? So we need this, we need a certain supply of water to meet our TCEQ demand, and then our system has certain requirements from TCEQ as well. And so generally, we don't struggle with the capacity requirement yet, but likely we will get there. And then also the investment in our system itself. So neighboring entities, and we're getting very close to it, is we have to have this requirement of a certain amount of capacity set aside per connection, right? And so we might not use all that water, but we do have to have it available. And so we're going to get to that point faster than we actually need the water, right? And so we need these agreements, and we need to be able to develop these this extra water for those requirements.
Good explanation. Right. Any other questions, comments on either one of those, or water generally? Okay. The next one, Cibolo Creek, is another one. This is more of a heads up and just a discussion point. But Cibolo Creek and flooding issues and floodplain issues over in that part of town are a big issue that we're kind of more on the front end of dealing with, and we are refocusing our efforts to participate in the regions that deal with that type of issue. And we're doing everything we can to start down the road of being able to seek assistance from the federal government, state government, whoever, and having a plan on how do we address that long term. A good chunk of Aviation Heights is in a floodplain and requires you lift out of that floodplain before you can develop. It also puts a significant portion of our population at risk of displacement. So we, of course, want to address that. So it's something that Larry and his crew, and maybe engineering as well, is involved in how do we move forward? What is the plan? How do we identify the problem? How do we determine the scope of the problem? And then how do we plan for it? And where do we seek resources for it? So that's something that we intend to reshift our focus and reshift our efforts to try and address that. So, Kathy, Larry, did I leave anything out? Brian? Okay.
Speaking of the
Comments from
watershed,
council? Yes, sir.
Bear County invested close to $240 million in their watersheds and nothing on the Cibolo Creek. And I think mainly because it is a boundary between Guadalupe and Bear County. And the biggest disaster factor that we have, California had the forest fires, and we cannot prevent weather issues, but flooding issues, I think, is the biggest challenge that we have. And we have to find a way to mitigate the flood. We have cleaned the creek that's coming up, but we're just cleaning the creek. We're not clearing the creek. And I think we need to focus on clearing the creek and remove some of those, the trees before they really reach a much bigger diameter that we cannot handle ourselves. So we need to work with both the county of Guadalupe County and Bear County to see whether or not they will help us clean this creek and clear it. And it just amazes me how much they put in Bear County and $0 here. So it's something that we need to work on, definitely.
Yes, sir. And like I said, we don't know 100% what the solution is, but yeah, maintenance right now is an issue, and how can we maintain it? And in the interim, in terms of how do we maintain until we can find a more permanent solution? We got to do something now, and we got to do something long term, both. So, and I'll put in a shameless plug for neighborhood services. Clean the Creek program is on the 22nd of February, first thing in the morning. Lasts about 2 or 3 hours. You are more than welcome to come out and volunteer. We'll have a lot of employees out there volunteering their time and helping, as well as community groups. So we're going to clean the creek. So I'm glad you said that, Mayor.
Yes,
Thank you for
no,
the shameless
it's an
plug.
excellent program. It is. I do recommend you bring the ugliest clothes that you have, the worst shoes that you have, and 2 pairs of gloves, and help us clean that creek.
Exactly. Wear your boots if you got it. But yeah, good shoes for sure, right? And gloves. You got that right. Any other comments or questions about floodplain moving forward? Go ahead, Larry.
So if I may, you brought up something, I agree with it. So in the past, before they kind of developed this state floodplain, the regional floodplain groups, right, it was kind of a county basis, right? And so I think we're doing a better job now on the state level. These regional flood groups are built around watersheds and not county lines necessarily and things like that. And so obviously we have a small piece in the Region 11 one, that's the Guadalupe one. Tricomal, kind of the area up north flows to that. Largely we flow to the Cibolo Creek, right, which is part of the San Antonio Floodplain Group. They do have a call coming up. We did attend, and so they're looking for the first go-around was like just a catch-all, but they're looking for a more developed process. So that is something in the next couple of years we'll have to really concentrate on queuing up, developed, well thought-out projects and having them ready to go instead of just kind of planning studies and stuff like that. So that's what they're looking for this go-around. Again, it's coming up in the next couple of years. I think the next implementation is 2028, maybe 27, 28. I can't remember the time frame, but and so we do need to invest now in getting those, we'll call it shovel-ready projects, kind of a concept going forward. And that's certainly the local projects that we can do don't make an impact. So we do need to reach out at a higher level to these other communities and these other entities, such as San Antonio River Authority or GBRA, to coordinate on these projects so we can make a bigger impact to the watershed as a whole. And we're smaller partners in that, and so the more communication we have will help.
All right. Any other questions, comments? This is an area that we need to refocus and put more of our efforts into. We're starting down that path. It'll likely require a higher level of commitment moving forward and into the future. It's just something that we're going to have to address. All right. Any other questions? We need a break. We good? We're good. Okay, we'll keep going. Next, we have sense of community as our next goal. And there's 3 objectives with that. And this one is something that we're not going to scare you with things like we said. No, I'm just kidding. The other issues where it's like, oh my gosh, development. You know, this is something of building that sense of community, and it's more conceptual in nature. And, you know, we are doing quite a bit in this area and intend to do more and keep moving in that direction. But the first one is actively engage and communicate with our residents and stakeholders, host events that create a sense of place and community, and grow quality of life programs and facilities. So some of the things we're already doing or already have done or in progress or moving forward in the future, one of the things to communicate with is it's a financial document, but it's really not a financial document. It's more of a year-end report that shows what are these things that the city is doing, or what are the things that the city is doing for our community and giving data related to, say, fire department or police department or EMS or roads and street maintenance, et cetera. So it's called the Popular Annual Financial Report, or PAFR, and it also includes some financial data. But it's a really nice year-end type summary communication report. Another thing that we have, or that are new community events. And so we've done some, and we plan to do more, but a couple of examples that are out there are don't really know the name, so I put Power Wheels. Is that the name of it, Power Wheels? Is it the soapbox racing? Is it the little cars? Why don't you
Not the Hot Wheels little cars. Power Wheels are the little toddler motorized, battery-operated
Okay.
cars. Yeah.
So that'll be a race of sorts?
Yeah, there'll be a race right out here outside Community Circle. So they've been very popular in other cities across the nation, so we're stealing a great idea. And you can't soup up the car. It has to just be stock.
Just stock car racing.
So do we have inspectors?
You shaved off a little here.
You just volunteered for that job, right, Councilmember? Thank you.
Well, if you get one that goes like 14 miles an hour, you know something's going on. So, okay, so that's an example of a new program, and it's something that's, that we're trying to offer our community, another amenity, people to participate in, something that's fun and from the Department of Fun. Bringing that to our community, giving those opportunities. Another one's a farmer's market. You want to elaborate on that?
Absolutely. We're calling it our Hometown Harvest Farmers Market series, and we're already getting a lot of interest from local, farms in the area even. I know there's the homegrown beef there on 1518 that we're trying to get in touch with. Artisans who make, soaps and lotions and candles and things like that, but really trying to network with the local farmers to bring the eggs and cheese and all the things that people are making out there and providing it for Schertz residents to come shop.
So we
dates. Yes, sorry. It'll be, we have 3 dates planned already. I think it's the second Saturday. Is that right? April, May, and June.
Is the community garden going to be there? Isn't there one behind that
There is
voting
a
center?
community garden, that's run by the Master Gardeners, Guadalupe County Master Gardeners. We work with them on other things, but I don't know that we've actually let them know that we're doing this, but we will. Yeah, if anybody wants to sell, they're able to get a booth. First Saturday of the month, sorry, not second Saturday of the month. April through June, yep. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., thank you. It's in our guide, which went live on February 1st.
Yeah, so it's first Saturday of the month, April through June, 9 to 1, and it's at Pickerel Park Large Pavilion.
So just 2 examples. We all know about the big ones, right? We know about Jubilee and Holidazzle and things like that. But we also do a lot of other smaller programs. We're looking for opportunities to where we can do these programs like those 2 that really add value to the community and opportunity for the community, but at the same time, aren't a gigantic event. This is an area where it's an evolution. There may be other events out there or ideas out there that we do that maybe they're larger scale or smaller scale like these, and it's something that's an evolution. So I'm kind of throwing that out there for discussion as well for the council, if there's any comments or questions about any of that. Nope. Okay. Lauren, do you have anything else you want to add there?
No, I think that's it. We had talked about that through the master plan process, that residents want to see more cultural, arts, music, food type festivals, and so that's really going to be our focus going forward, is trying to come up with some creative ideas for the future.
So that kind of touches on the community-wide aspect of it, and it's something that we're committed to moving forward. Feel like it really addresses these objectives that are in this goal of sense of community. The other new programs aspect is within the Parks Department. So you got the summer programs that Parks is doing. It's something that, it's new. It's really springboarded and really been something that's popular. That, along with things like the adult social leagues, really taken off. Something that we hadn't done and that we're doing in-house. So you want to talk about summer?
Yeah, I think we saw, 40 new programs over the summer. That's kids camps, the half-day camps and things like that. Parents are always looking for something for kids to do over the summer. And, we sold out, I think, of like 80% of the ones that we had offered. So there's still a need in the community for those kind of programs. And then we continue to see recreation for adults be a space that we need to continue to offer more. People want to play in a league after work, play kickball, play softball, whatever, and not have to drive to San Antonio or New Braunfels to do those things. So those leagues continue to be popular, and we'll continue to offer them within the capacity that we have. So. And then, yes, we also hired our rec instructors this summer. We had park maintenance seasonal technicians that didn't really offer a lot of value for us. By the time they got in, got trained, they were done. And so we switched that to rec instructors, and they've been able to help us add that capacity immensely in the summertime months.
Okay, great.
One quick question. You said the community is asking for, arts and things along that line. Have you talked with the chamber at all? Because there used to be a Schertz, like Arts Society or whatever, and they did a few events, but it's been 12, 15 years.
Right. We haven't talked to them yet, but we will. We've been talking about that, where there was an arts league and trying to tap into that. I know there's a New Braunfels Arts League that's really strong, and we've noticed some of the Schertz people are in that. And so we might want to try to help bring that back over here and offer things in this area.
Yes, and that's something that I think it's in here that we intend to talk about is the potential of an arts program. And that's something that been working on here a little bit. Councilman Davis has been working on as well, or has been working on in terms of an arts program itself, so, and how that looks like. So that's something moving forward that could be a big component of what we do. It's just not completely fleshed out yet.
Like I say, don't try to reinvent something that people already have information on, is all I'm saying. Is, utilize this chamber as a source, not necessarily, making it all your own, so.
Yes, sir. All right, kind of shifting gears a little bit. One of the things we looked at in terms of our communications with residents, Linda and her crew do an awesome job in terms of information output. We've got things like, Schertz magazine and the website, a lot of things that we use. We've actually really upped our game from Facebook and Instagram and the video series, the Now You Know, I alluded to earlier. If you guys aren't on our Facebook page or our Instagram page, I highly encourage you to subscribe to it. But one of the things that are new, we've had a Facebook page for a while now, and we've had an Instagram for a while now, but we've really upped our game in terms of the content and what we're pushing out. We get a lot more hits and interest on that, and we even do it, the Parks Department, Lauren reported in her report, they use it as well, and some of the other departments, police, fire, et cetera, use it, but really, at its core, Public Affairs has done an excellent job of really pushing information out. If you haven't seen them, the Now You Know series is where I go around to a different function in the city each month. We just did the 7th one, was published the other day, and I'll interview and highlight, and Scott was just here, wherever he is. Of course, Scott starred in our last one, did a great job, but there's a lot of fun to make, but also they talk about things that the city does, get the word out. So we're really good, and we've been really successful in that communication output. Where we want to evolve to is communication input. And you heard the other day during the garbage RFP process, using a product called Flash Vote. Flash Vote is where you can do surveys, if you will, and get that kind of a quick survey that's easily done, statistically valid, but it gets that input coming back into you. And so not that that's the only service out there, but using something like that to really kind of make the communication level two-way. Because we want to understand, not only do we want to push that information out, we want to understand what folks are thinking or what they're wanting, et cetera. Yes, go ahead.
And again, just because Linda's not here, to quickly touch on that. So with the flash vote, yes, one of the uses that we'll be, utilizing it for is for the feedback on garbage and solid waste. But it also comes with, you can use it, I think, 6 times, and so the garbage will be 1. And so working to come together and kind of brainstorm and what would we want to use the remaining 5 for. So I know she and I have talked about, as far as this communication out or input and hearing back from the community on communication itself. So how residents are wanting to receive information. So I know that may be another one. And then, again, we have more after that. So more to come on that.
So like I said, I think we do a really nice job. Public Affairs, Linda and her crew does a great job. And I will say we're working on the state of the city. The one that'll come out at the next chamber meeting, it'll be the best ever. Just saying. No, it's going to be really good. We had a lot of fun making it, so I think you'll like it.
I have a question on communication.
Yes, sir.
When we reach 50,000, is there different requirements that we have to provide regarding our residents on communication?
So if you're maybe with the PEG channel and
Yes.
kind of providing content programming. So yes, I believe there is something with that. And again, on our radar as far as, if we have that access channel. And I know there's a certain number of hours per week that have to be, provided, like streaming the council meeting would count, and P&Z meeting and things like that. So yes, that's on our radar as well whenever,
on our radar?
to
Okay.
make sure we have a plan ready.
Because we're definitely going to hit over 50K on the next census.
Mhm.
Definitely. So I think it's something that we really need to,
Yes.
well, I'm glad the focus is already there. Thank you.
I have a high level of confidence, our public affairs folks, that we will be able to manage that, and we'll come up with our own content. Also, I've been through that process before, is you can actually purchase content as well, and that counts as broadcasted, and it'll meet that requirement. But yeah, you pay for it with the fees that are generated, the PEG fees that are on the cable bills, and so that's how you end up paying for it. And you can use that until you get, say, bigger and you really start developing your own content and you have a bunch of stuff that you put on there that you generate. But yes, it's actually a nice tool to have. It's a nice way to get that communication output. So, any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm excited about the Now You Know because I've been wanting that for a long time, and I'm glad you're actually doing it. Because I think it helps the residents know how city government can work.
Okay, show of hands. Who's seen them? Anybody seen them? Okay, all right, good. Okay. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's not just on Instagram, but it's on YouTube, it's on our webpage, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook. So it's not just in one place. You can go to, if you just have internet access, the easiest way to do it is go to YouTube.
Steve just wants y'all to see him acting, that's all.
There's what?
I said you just want everybody to see you acting.
The host is really bad, but the content is really good. So the production value and the content's good. The host is mediocre at best. So, yes, sir.
Definitely, the residents definitely want to see as much information as possible, and by you doing this, it's definitely going to help out because they want to be informed. They want to know what's going on within the city. So, absolutely.
Sir. Any other questions, comments? All right. And we always welcome your ideas too. Councilwoman Hayward mentioned this is something she had been wanting to see. There are the communities that do that, and it's something we had been looked at, but also she came across it and saw it in another community, and that's a great idea. There are ideas in local government especially, but in government in general, we're really good at stealing each other's ideas, and nobody's really upset about when somebody steals your idea. That's just what we do. So if y'all come across something and you think that's a good idea, let us know. And that's how we generate new and fresh content and ideas. So, kind of next on the list is community partnerships and having those. Melissa, you can come on up. So really, one thing that we would like to do and move forward in helping build that sense of community is enhancing our community partnerships. And you know, what is it that we can do to partner? And quite frankly, it actually builds into that two-way communication aspect. So a couple of things that the library has done with the Native Plant Society and Master Gardeners. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Sure. These are two of our newer partnerships. So, I mean, the library, we run on partnerships with all kinds of groups in the community, in the county, all over. But in the last year, we have created a partnership with the Native Plant Society to create a native plant seed library, where it's sort of a pay-it-forward program. If you come to the library, you can take seeds for native plants that grow well in this area, and then you grow them in your house, in your home, wherever. And then when the plants dry out, you collect the seeds and then bring them back to us. And then the Native Plant Society has groups of people who come, and we do this at the library too, where they come and they clean seeds, repackage them, they go back into the seed library, and then it's just a continuous self-sustaining program after that. So far, we've had a lot of excitement. We've had, actually the society told us that the seed cleaning programs that we've had so far, we've had 3 of them, and they've been some of the biggest turnout in the entire area. So I think the last one we had close to 25 people that came and worked to clean and package seeds. We also have another partnership with the Guadalupe County Master Gardeners group, and they are coming once a month on the second Saturday of each month to do what they call lunch and learns, and they pick a new topic. The February topic, which will be this weekend actually, is spring gardening. Next week will be canning. So they pick a topic and they do educational programs for the community. Those programs are very, very, we had to move them out of the front meeting room and into the program room because we have too many people coming to them. So, but those are just 2. We do tons and tons of partnership programs. We work with the YMCA, we work with Boysville. We have huge partnerships with the school district to provide all kinds of programs for them. It's just sort of one of those things that we do. It's one of the reasons, or one of the drivers for the amount of programming we do.
Great. Any other questions? So just 2 small examples of our effort to engage the community and kind of enhance that quality of life aspect. Any other comments? Okay, last one on there is hotel occupancy taxes. There's been some discussion, and I've spoken to a few of y'all. In fact, there's an email that went out on the amount of money for hotel occupancy taxes. It's a tax that we collect, and there's an opportunity to use that for certain things. And we are investigating ways that we can spend that money. It's very limited in terms of what the state requires that you use it for. But, you know, if there are ideas out there, hotel occupancy tax could be a way to pay for them. We just have to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. So I put it on there in case there's any discussion or if anybody wants to talk about them at all. And, you know, it is something that Sarah had forwarded information, I think from Jessica Dykes, about, you know, balances and what we have that the mayor had requested. We've got a considerable amount of money in there and it's building. So uses for those funds, and how can we appropriately put it to work. So it's something that we're working on. We intend to focus on it going into the future. Of course, if you have ideas, pass them to us, and you know we'll run it through the traps and see if it's something that works. Questions? Yes, sir.
Obviously, this is, you know, it flows right into building the brand and getting the branding out there. You know, more, you know, like a welcome to Schertz signage and things like that at our entry points around town, whether it's I-35, whether it's, you know, like we've done with Schertz Parkway there. That's very nice, and I appreciate the fact that the last couple of years has upped the maintenance and look on it. You know, but same thing, maybe other areas, you know, around 78 or eventually on 1518 when it gets fixed up. But I'm not saying I want to do that right now. I'm just
No,
saying
no, no,
throw that out there, you know, as uses of the hot tax.
Absolutely. So what we would do is any idea or anything that we come up with, y'all come up with, the community comes up with, you know, we would just run it through the filter. There, generally speaking, there are resources that outline this. There's a two-part test for the use of hot funds. So the first part is, does it put heads in beds? So yeah, you know, is it what you're doing, does that put heads in beds? And then there are 9 categories, and some of them are actually bracketed where it's really specific to certain cities. There's 9 categories of, does it do this? Does it promote the arts? Is it a sports facility? Is it so what you do is you apply part 1 and then you see if it's one of the 9. So anytime you have an idea, you kind of look at it and you say, all right, signage is actually one that was clarified, which I don't, you know, it's what kind of signage, but if we wanted to put a billboard, right? We have a billboard up by Fire Station 2. If we wanted to say, you know, come to Schertz. We have historic Main Street, or, you know, come visit Schertz. We have this great place and come stay there. That's would be in most cases, an acceptable use because you're promoting tourism and people to come and stay in your community. If you had a festival, things like that, potentially, you know, after evaluation, you look at it and say, okay, this brings people to come stay here. That would be an appropriate use. Did you want to add anything? Okay, all right.
No,
So,
I may add
Yes,
to
sir.
that, you know, any idea is welcome. Even the wildest idea that you have is something that we can consider. I mean, look at Amarillo. They have the Cadillac farm that they put a bunch of Cadillacs in the ground, and the amount of tourism that goes just to see those Cadillacs. So that's what I'm saying is that this is where you can have your brain just go off the deep end and bring those ideas so that we can go ahead and look at them carefully and make our own destination. This is our opportunity to make a destination for our city and bring in those heads and beds and those tax dollars on our eateries and make the impact that we can actually benefit from it.
Hey, ideas are ideas. They're great. You know, you never do anything different or creative if you don't have an idea. So throw the ideas out there, and it may or may not work with hot taxes. If it's something that everybody really likes, a great idea to move forward with. If it's not hot tax, maybe it's some other way to fund it. So, all right. Any other questions, comments? You looked like you were about to speak. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Anything else? If nothing else, I'll move on to the next one, the last category. And I will say this, we do have lunch after this. It's already here, so we're all set. If you have the ability to stick around. I know we're moving pretty quickly, so. Last one is thriving economy. And like I said, these are in no way in any kind of priority order because obviously maintaining a thriving economy is a huge thing for us. And it goes right to the heart of our mission statement or vision statement rather. So the goal is thriving economy. The objectives are to support strategic development, support revitalization of target areas, support business retention and recruitment, and effectively plan and manage land use. So some areas where we have accomplished things towards those goals and the things that we want to address in the future. The big one being our comprehensive plan. So we nailed that down in 24, went through the process of updating our comprehensive plan. That's a big achievement, right? That lays out, it feeds into everything else. And everything is interconnected like we talked about from strategic plan, our CIP, our operating budget, and our strategic plan and all the comprehensive plan, and all the strategic plans comprehensive plans that go up to our comprehensive plan, master plans that go into our comprehensive plan is something that kind of lays out that roadmap of how do we develop and how are we going to look, and what are we going to look like when we grow up? So that was a big accomplishment, and obviously moving forward, it's the roadmap. Excuse the pun. It's the roadmap on how we move forward in terms of how our city develops. It's not something it's something that y'all see all the time in council meetings, because we deal with zoning, we deal with a multitude of issues related to the comprehensive plan. Any questions, comments? Brian, did I leave anything out there? Nope. Okay. All right. So Main Street. Obviously, Main Street is a big project for us, and we are on the front end of that project really getting going and accelerating, kicking off. It's a multifaceted project. It's going to include utilities, water, sewer, undergrounding electric, moving things around. So we're in the situation where we have to rehab, replace water and sewer lines. So doing everything in concert makes a lot of sense. Also undergrounding utilities. And then when you're all done with that, repaving the roads. Of course, there will be an aesthetic component to it with sidewalks that look really nice, upgraded lighting, signage, park benches, all the things that are in the downtown master, or the Main Street master plan. And then also we have, out in the future, we have a funding source for it. We have some bonds, and then 4B sales tax. And as we move forward and this thing fully fleshes out, making sure that we have the funding to carry this all the way through is going to be important. So, questions, comments? Yes, sir.
So your comments reminded me of this, there was this beautiful building downtown San Antonio. It's a beautiful building, but only half full, right? So you build this aesthetically pleasing Main Street, but what about the tenants and what drives traffic there? And I know that's not a discussion to be had here, but you're preaching about the utilities, roads, and everything else, but you have this beautiful building, but it doesn't do us any good if nobody shows up to see it. So that's it.
I will say, yes, I mean, that's always, when you make a public investment, does it come to fruition? It's always a concern. One thing that is a component of that really is the floodplain aspect of it, and really addressing that, and how do we fix that, right? Because that impacts all of those properties over there, or almost all those properties. Some of y'all may know this better than I do, but that's something that impacts it, and addressing all of it is going to be really important.
Well, I think big thing what we're doing down there is we're encouraging the private property owners that do own the land down there to invest in themselves as well, because we only own the streets. We don't own the buildings, the properties, the lots. So we're not going in there to redevelop those or to improve those or anything along that line. All we're doing is improving and making the public areas, more desirable. Hopefully, the private property owners down there will in turn invest in themselves and in the community, and maybe take that old rundown residence and turn it into a shop or something, But yeah, we're not going to go down there and buy them and turn them into something ourselves.
But I think this is where, again, it's a multifaceted approach, right? We've had the zoning and the ordinance updates to make it easier to develop, to encourage that. We've had the grant programs, and we've certainly seen that investment in the buildings. We had the physical infrastructure improvements. We've talked a lot about, as that gets going at the right time, doing the programming of events in conjunction with parks and whatnot to activate that space, right? How do we get people down there to see it, to drive traffic, things like that? One element that Steve mentioned is the signage, right? We have a lot of traffic on 78 who don't even know what's going on Main Street. So yeah, I think your point's well taken. I think the committee's helped us look at that sort of thing. And again, I think that's why we're approaching it from the way we are. Again, we've got EDC and Ashley with EDC involved with the group, with NOAC and Sam and I, to try to do that. So we're bringing all of those things. I think, as we kick off here and get closer to having an idea, part of it is looking at what are those things that the city can do to continue that effort to target certain types of businesses that folks want to see down there, right? But, you know, we talked about it before. When I started here, literally with the exception of, I think, Thirsty Joe's, who some of you are familiar with, there was really nothing open at all after 5 o'clock, right? And there were really limited options in terms of what you could eat. We're not where we want to be. You certainly have multiple places you can go after 5 o'clock, multiple places to go eat. So I think we've made some successes, and again, part of this is continuing down that path. But point well taken.
I think it's important to remember too, certain components of the project would be done regardless whether you upgraded it. It's kind of like you're taking a public works project of replacing water and sewer lines, and then you got to redo the street because you just had to destroy the street to do the water and sewer lines, and then you're adding on top of it some aesthetically pleasing aspects to it. It increases the cost, but also hopefully we can springboard off that and do a lot of things Brian was just saying. So. All right, next we have commercial and industrial development, unless any other comments on Main Street? Okay. Commercial industrial development, we've seen a lot of success there. Just 3 of them are listed, Titan, Core 5, and IDS. As with economic development, we can't talk about all the stuff. Scott, you want to come up? Come on up, Scott. We can't talk about prospects or, you know, who's out there, and because we don't want to compromise what we're trying to achieve. But we do have a lot of activity, and a lot of the things that have opened up now, they'll get to the point, especially if it's warehouse distribution or industrial, get to the point where it starts filling up, and economic development is doing a really good job of not necessarily just even attracting new, but what do we have in inventory? What can we attract to that open space? And how can we fill up that square footage that's out there? Developing that commercial and industrial base really helps to offset the burden of property taxation from our residents. I think we're very fortunate in terms of where our tax rate is that we have such a large industrial base, considering things like our DVHS 100% that tend to tip things that way. If we didn't have that commercial and industrial base, it would really put a strain on the residences. So it's important, just know that there are, I don't know how much you can even say, Scott, but other prospects out there. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Steve. I prepared about 20 minutes of comments, so if you guys please, cut me off if I get talking too many. I'm just kidding you. Last year, after y'all thoughtfully set your strategic plan, the EDC boards also met with their strategic plan, and a lot of the stuff that we have set as goals mirror y'all's plans almost to a T. So there is a lot of what we consider targeted industries that we're looking at to go in some of our areas. We do have industrial on the north side of 35 that is really, really tremendous right now. We have a lot of people, at one time they were saying that there's no more million square foot users out there. Well, we've got 2 of them right now on the line that we're trying to find a home for. So there's a lot of people out there kicking tires. 35 is very exciting. And actually, you know, Steve kind of spoke to the southern part of Schertz. I-10 is actually pretty exciting too right now. And a lot of people are, if you've been down there, you'll see Core 5 at 1604 and I-10, and you can't miss it. And that's just 2 of the buildings that'll be out there. And it'll be a total of 2 million square feet at the end of the day. So those are just a couple of our major developments. We have a total of about 8 million square feet right now that we're trying to fill with users, and we're helping the city of San Antonio, and they're helping us. We're helping them find users that comes from the governor's office that look for projects, and we're trying to meet those needs.
All right, and it's constantly moving and constantly evolving, and it's something moving out in the future. You know, we're gonna continue to fulfill that mission. On the flip side, well, not flip side, but kind of the other side is retail development. And if you hadn't seen it lately, Schertz Station starting to go vertical. So we'll see some of those buildings going vertical, and the development site, the site itself develop with a lot of landscaping, all the things that go on, it'll look more like a real shopping center. There's the residential component that's behind it that's moved very quickly. And so that's an exciting development. And Scott, you want to update on
That is very exciting. You know, it's something that we can't really use our 4B funds to promote retail, but we can do the infrastructure for any type of business. So that very, very nice road that runs in behind Evo, in between the Schertz station and the multifamily development that's being placed there, that road was all paid for by the EDC, and then we're gonna be hopefully use that to parlay even more development in that area as well, and it'll be just another extension of our future thoroughfare plan that'll provide non-interstate alternatives that allow our people to move around. But the Panera Bread, like Steve was talking about, we've also had the discussion about the big box. It is on their website, and I hate to go around using names because there's many a slip between a cup and a lip, and things could change overnight. But y'all can go on the website and you see it's a great big Home Depot sign that looks beautiful.
on Merit's website.
We've been on Merit's website. We've been working with them to make sure that they provide us with a nicer product than they typically do. There's Chipotle, there's Portillo's, there's all of those are out there, and they're going to provide nice alternatives for our residents and visitors to come leave their tax dollars behind and go home.
So that's something that we hear a lot of, is there's a demand for restaurant and retail, and this is a good start in terms of that economic development. Like Scott mentioned, we can't use the 4B sales tax to incent those, but what we can do is help with infrastructure. And actually, it's a performance-based program where eventually even the EDC will recoup its investment through additional sales tax. So it is something that is, we're excited about it. It gets us moving in the right direction of retail. Obviously, there's a ton of potential for retail along 35 and eventually along I-10 and 15, 18 and some others. So the sales tax is an important component of your budget in terms of, just like the commercial and industrial, it offsets some of that need for property tax. And then it also gives you another leg. It tends to be more elastic, so it grows faster than, say, property tax revenues. It also shrinks faster in a contraction in the economy, but it is another leg in that stool that we support our finances with. So it's important to continue to develop that retail base, and that's something moving forward, we're gonna do our best to keep doing that. So, anything else, Scott? You good?
I have nothing. Thank you for the ability to address council today.
Sir, questions, council? Anybody want a Trader Joe's? Everybody's, I'm just kidding. Scott can speak to that if you want.
You need to watch now. You know that's coming up. Oh, you've already.
No,
it's already out. It's already out.
Sir. There you go. Anyway, that and Cracker Barrel.
I'd also offer that at the last EDC meeting, which meets on towards the end of the month on Thursdays, we went through kind of what did y'all do in 2024? If anybody would like to see that presentation or have additional information on projects that we contributed to in 2024, I'd be happy to run through that with you guys.
Okay. All right. Another big piece of this category is updates to the UDC, and it really talks to the strategic development aspect of our strategic plan. So this year, the UDC updates that we had a parking update, we had landscape, we are in process. No, we have the landscaping updates, and then we're in process. I don't know, Lisa, you want to come up? Come on up. And then, like you heard the other night, when we'll be bringing a more comprehensive look at our sign component. So there's pieces of the UDC we're going through and have been going through this process of taking parts of the UDC and updating them and modernizing them. And so do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So the Planning Division has been working on updates to the Unified Development Code. They started out thinking they were going to start comprehensive and start with Chapter 1. And so they worked through 1 through 4, but still At times, we've had to pull things out. So right now, they're currently working on an overhaul of the sign ordinance, looking to simplify it, take some of the fluff out, and try to make it a little bit user-friendly, a little bit more user-friendly. And the goal is to have that to the Planning and Zoning Commission in March and then to council in April. That's the goal. And then as they continue to work through, they'll continue to work through the other larger items in the Unified Development Code. But to add to that, also our Neighborhood Services is working on some code amendments to the nuisance ordinance that you should see in the next few months, as well as our Building Department is looking at updating the building codes to the 2024 codes. San Antonio just adopted theirs in some of our neighboring cities, and so we're looking to be consistent for our contractors and developers so that we're all using similar codes throughout the regional area.
Okay. Comments, questions? You'll see more activity with the UDC and bringing, updates and kind of improve. Well, don't run off. Lisa, don't run off. There might be questions. So, comments, questions? Nope. Okay. The last bullet that's up there, I added this, and it's kind of like a question that we had last year, and I know Councilman Guerrero was not on the council then, but all of y'all remember we brought in Ron and we went through. One of the questions I asked is, describe my first impression of coming to Schertz and driving down Schertz Parkway and seeing all the masonry walls and seeing the upgraded building standards and standards in the UDC compared to some other communities, and it really made a positive impression. I think it really makes a positive impression on anybody who drives down the street. So the question that I asked was, what community do we want to be? Do we want to continue to be a masonry wall community? And with a little bit of that upgraded standard, which could appear, it could cause a little pain sometimes during development process, but the end result is everybody benefits. The developer benefits, the community benefits, and we build the community that we want. So staff is held on to that perspective. And so when we bring things to you, we are coming to you from that perspective, that we want to continue with that mindset. And we want to make sure that we're still in alignment with the council. And that's the direction we need to be headed. And if it's not, that's just what we need to know, and we can shift directions if that's the consensus of the council. Did Brian, accurately describe that, or Lisa? Okay. All right, so I'm just throwing that out there for council. I'm not asking you to vote or anything like that, but if you do, go ahead, Mayor.
No, I think it's very important. I mean, that's first impression people get when they come down IH-35. But if you look at FM 1518, what it's going to look in the future, the impact it's going to have, and then just on the east side of it, you could already start seeing the south side, the south portion of FM 3009. And those two roads are going to be parallel to each other, going to I-10 eventually. But that signifies the standards that we have. And that 1 mile stretch of road that's already built off, on FM 3009, it's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, you need to drive down there and just imagine it connecting to 78 and all the way to IH-10. It will make an impact, and that's what that's all about. Thank you.
That's an excellent point, Mayor. If you haven't driven through Saddlebrook, right, you're talking about the stretch through Stroud. If you haven't been over there, drive through and take a look. It doesn't have the live oaks or anything yet, but eventually it'll grow up, and you'll see what it means. And the mayor touched on a really important point, is that South Schertz is where that development will be. 1518 and whatever it's going to be called, that extension of 3009 all the way down to 10, is South Schertz going to look like North Schertz, or is it going to be something different? And we have the impression as a staff that moving forward, that's what we want to do. We want to make it look like Schertz Parkway.
No, and I just want to remind the council that the majority of the council that was there approved the Saddlebrook development. And this is exactly what you did 5 years ago. And I just want to say thank you for that input. And I just drove, I mean, I'm so impressed by it because I just drove by it. I had a couple of developers looking for sites, and they found 6 different sites that they were interested in. And it's, we're going to see development just hit once 1518 is finished.
All right. Comments, questions? Okay. All right. Anything else, Lisa? Okay. Well, then I'll move on. And that's it as far as our goals and the objectives and our response and plans. The next thing we have is just, are there other objectives that are out there that we might have missed? Is there something that we're missing that this is the forum to discuss that we need to, you know, start planning for that? Or are there ideas or things that we don't know about or are missing? I guess this is where we have the opportunity to ask for that. Yes, sir.
Actually, I got a question that backtrack a couple notches. You had mentioned that there are some cities that cannot afford EMS services by themselves.
Right.
You had mentioned that. And my question is probably to Chief Mavitt. What are the neighboring cities that we provide services to?
Yeah, so we have the county contract for Guadalupe County for all unincorporated areas for Guadalupe County. We've got the base, so JBSA Randolph. And then the cities we have are Marion, Santa Clara, Cibolo, Schertz, Selma, UC, Live Oak, and then Comal County ESD 6, which is the Guard Ridge Bracken area.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes, sir. So, for example, even a city as large as Cibolo, not that they couldn't afford it, but in terms of per capita cost or like the economies of scale gained by partnering with us, it probably cost them twice as much. Easily.
Yeah, it'd be quadruple. Cibolo would be quadruple, Schertz would be quadruple. I do want to talk about Santa Clara or Marion.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Anything else that we're missing? Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, I think we got a great foundation, and thanks for, you know, all the effort last year to bring us back to where we are. You know, we can go back 25, 30 years, SSLGC, taking the other side of 35 and making sure that that's our industrial complex versus residential. Just a lot of good stuff that, you know, Schertz has done over many, many years, and it's our responsibility to continue that and not screw it up more than anything. And we're going to grow, so let's just grow right.
All right, anything else that's fresh? I guess the last slide is discussion, or if anybody has any kind of closing comments they want to make, Mayor, if you want to close, any closing comments, or we're pretty much to the end of what we have, but this is an opportunity. Cat-like reflexes there, got that. This is the opportunity to make comments.
I just want to say thank you to the staff for the presentation, but I also want to challenge the council to, it doesn't stop here. You know, just because we had this presentation, if you have ideas, you know, anytime, bring them up, because that actually is a spark that we need to move in the direction that we want to do. So don't hesitate. Talk to Steve. He makes himself available, and the staff is available for, you know, just to talk to you and listen to what you have, and we have a shared goal basically, and we just want to make sure that we're in the right direction. Our visions are different. That's the only thing. You know, our visions are different, but there's no questions that we all have the best interests of this city. And I just want to say thank you for coming out here, and you know, we value your input. I don't have anything else.
Anybody?
Council, anything else?
Anybody have any
You
other
want to
comments?
officially close it and we can have lunch? Okay, we'll go ahead and officially close our session. It's 11:37. We stand adjourned.
All right, thank you very much, y'all. Lunch is in the conference room.